Good morning, Wichita, and thank you all for joining us. I'd like to invite Pastor Pam Mason of St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church to the podium to say the prayer.
Let us pray. This morning, Lord, we gather at the seat of the City Council meeting for today's session. We pray for each person present, viewing virtually, and their families. Lord, we pray for every employee of the city and their family. We pray for the health and well-being of every person who says ICT is their home. Our hearts acknowledge those who are experiencing loss and traumatic circumstances all around us and globally. Our hearts are heavy in this time of uncertainty. We need you, your guidance, and we need each other. As they lead us by example, we pray that each council person's countenance exemplifies integrity. May we witness the continued establishment and reinforcement of viable policies and procedures and resources. May there be ongoing dialogue that values and considers all sides. May leadership speak up and speak clearly for justice. May they have the eyes and the ears to hear and to respond to the cries of the people who reside in Wichita. May they implement change at all levels for the betterment of our city and all communities. Lord, may the dialogue address the urgent needs of ICT, senior care, mental health, homelessness, affordable housing, unsafe environments, education disparity, unemployment, and environmental challenges. The fiscal impact on each household and every business and the value of humankind. Let there be, Lord, productive interaction with the City Council, which displays leadership working together for the common goal of our city and every community therein. May wisdom prevail in decision-making and deliberation. Lord, we love our city. We are expecting great things, and we cannot remain silent. We acknowledge the work that has been done, yet there is so much undone. Let us grasp the opportunity. May each person that serves to be agents of change, facing realities, answering the difficult questions, admitting not knowing, being present in the now, creating a momentum and environment for change. As movement occurs collaboratively, may we face each moment with hope and clear understanding that all humankind matters. Bless this meeting on today, all those present, as well as the lives of those that we will encounter afterwards. Prepare each of us to make every moment count. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Mason. We'll note that the mayor is in New York City at a conference for government officials, and we wish her luck there. She'll be joining us later for a short time. Is there anyone who would like to, any corrections to the minutes? Do you need to read that first, Paul? Okay, go ahead.
Approve the minutes of regular meeting July 8, 2025.
Okay, now, does any council member have any corrections? Seeing none, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting July 8th, 2025.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Clerk, will you please pull up the vote? Motion carries 6-0. Clerk, please. Mr. Clerk, please play the next item.
Proclamations. The proclamations this week are Park and Recreation Month, ASEZ Wichita Month of Service, and the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Before we do this proclamation, come on, Parks and Rec, please come up. But I believe someone has a birthday today. And it's our leader of Parks and Recs, Reggie Davidson. So if you'll indulge me, we are going to sing happy birthday to him. So. Okay, I'm going to lead, I'm not going to sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Reggie. Happy birthday to you. Reggie, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Do a great job with Parks and Recs, which leads us to the proclamation for the City of Wichita, founded in 1870. Whereas Parks and Recreation promote time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illness such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activity by providing space for sports, hiking, swimming, and other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. Their programming and educational activities such as out-of-school time programming and youth sports are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of business and crime reduction, and whereas our parks and recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for all to connect with nature and recreation and outdoors. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Wichita City Council does hereby proclaim July 2025 as Park and Recreation Month in the city of Wichita, and encourage all citizens to recognize the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources as an integral part of the Wichita community.
No better way to celebrate my birthday today besides with this team here. So just wanted to say that how important recreation is to our community, and just that recreation is essential. All of the hard work that this team does behind us to make sure that we create safe spaces for our young people to be able to have opportunity to be in areas where they can enjoy the nature, enjoy sports, and not have to worry about there being other barriers that contribute to them not being safe. The hard work that they do from our forestry team to our park maintenance team with supporting all of our special events that we have, our golf division that puts on quality programs for our community and quality services, that their hard work doesn't go unnoticed. And this is an opportunity to kind of spotlight what they do. And our mantra for our department is that teamwork win, and we always work together to make sure that we deliver a good quality product to the community. So I want to give these guys a hand of applause here for all the hard work that they do.
would like to now invite Councilman Hoheisel for the next proclamation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If I could have all the members of Azaz Wow, I'm sorry. You're not going to get any singing out of me today, but if I can go ahead and just speak real quick. You're fired, Bob. If I could just speak real quick about the great work that this group is doing in our community. They've been out at a number of park cleanups here recently, including Clapp Park, where we had catastrophic floods. They took time out of work days to come up and actually help clean the park up. So my appreciation just goes out to them. And I have the privilege of being able to read the proclamation here. Whereas Azaz Wow, an international young adult worker volunteer group that practices love and volunteer service in workplaces and communities around the world, whose members actively participate in pertinent global issues with a sense of ownership and is affiliated with and sponsored by the World Mission Society Church of God. Whereas Azaz Wow, Wichita has been carrying out various park cleanups across underserved and at-risk Wichita communities as part of the Azaz Wow Green Earth campaign and to fulfill UN Sustainable Development Goals. Whereas today is the first day of the month of July in 2025, Azaz Wow, sponsored by the World Mission Society Church of God in partnership with the City of Wichita and with the full support of Parks and Recreation, will kick off the Azaz Wow Wichita Month of Service to raise community awareness about climate change, inspire volunteer participation and community support, and promote their advocacy in various activities in July. Whereas Azaz Wow has been globally recognized and awarded over 300 times across 22 countries, including being awarded the U.S. President's Volunteer Service Award 3 times, Azaz Wow Wichita has demonstrated a commitment to protecting and beautifying the local environment through various parks cleanups since 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Wichita City Council does hereby proclaim July 2025 as Azaz Wow Wichita Month of Service in the City of Wichita and encourage all to get involved with and support Azaz Wow Wichita during the month of July as they continue to serve communities in clean parks all over the city.
Firstly, we would like to give thanks and praise to God Elohim for allowing us to do good work in Wichita and to spread God's love through our deeds. We also like to thank Mayor Wu, council members Hoheisel and Glasscock, and the other city council members, Wichita Parks and Recreation, our community partners, our volunteers, and the entire city for supporting Azaz Wow. Azaz Wow stands for Save the Earth from E to Z. We are one family. And it is an international young adult worker volunteer group for the World Mission Society Church of God members. And we started doing park cleanups in Wichita in 2017. And we are grateful to be recognized by the City Council, and we are eager to spread our mission to all of Wichita, our state, and the world. We actively carry out volunteer services in over 175 countries, as well as in every state. And we have a goal to become active all over Kansas in the upcoming year. We are determined to clean every park in the city and do so while uniting with each other and community leaders in order to share the love of a mother to all people and to fulfill the UN Sustainable Development Goals for the environment. We're excited to continue working in Wichita, and we want to invite all of you guys to our cleanup on Sunday, July 27th at 9:30 for a cleanup at Dr. Glenday Park in District 1. And we look forward to our continued partnership with all our volunteer community leaders, park and recreation, and with the citizens of Wichita. And we also want to invite you guys to our multicultural experience event we are hosting on July 20th at noon. Thank you, and we have one final message for you. Okay, ready? One. We love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you.
Anybody for the next proclamation, anniversary of Americans' disabilities, to come forward?
Good. Good to see you.
Make the proclamation of the city of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas on July 26, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, to ensure the civil rights. Whereas this legislation established a comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities, and the legislation has expanded opportunities for disabled communities. Whereas the full promise of the ADA will only be reached if we continue our efforts to ensure comparable housing, transportation, communication, education, and employment opportunities for all disabled people. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Wichita City Council does hereby proclaim July 26th, 2025 as the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in the city of Wichita, and encourage all citizens to celebrate this day.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and council members. My colleagues and I are here as members of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board. As a board, we thoughtfully make accessibility recommendations based on our diverse experiences and areas of expertise. It is our sincere hope that disabled people may fully participate in the great opportunities that Wichita offers, and that the city may also benefit from the contributions of people with disabilities. Thank you again for honoring the anniversary of what has truly been life-changing legislation, and we look forward to collaborating in the coming year.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, most certainly.
Always.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Will you please call the next item?
Public agenda. The public agenda allows for up to 5 speakers to have 5 minutes each to address the council. No action will be taken relative to items on the public agenda other than referral to the city manager for information as necessary. Speakers will please state their name and address for the record. A time clock will display the speaker's remaining time to speak. Order and rules of decorum will be observed. The first speaker is Lisa Veda on behalf of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board with regards to a letter we sent to Wichita and Sedgwick County leadership.
I don't have to get out of my scooter. This is great. First of all, I want to say thank you for your community leadership. My name is Lisa Veda. I am representing the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board. I reside at 14400 East Sport of Kings, Wichita, Kansas, in District 2, Council Member Tuttle's district. I did send you all email copies, and I hope that you were able to read them. If not, I do have physical copies here. Our letter is a response to the Wichita Eagle April 15th article involving the $4.9 million project that is intended to make the downtown area of Wichita more walkable. However, our response actually extends to all projects in the city and the county that involve transportation, roads and walkways, buildings, events, and meetings such as this. I will say thank you because last week I presented to the Sedgwick County Commission and I could not even get to the podium because it is not an accessible building. So thank you for allowing this meeting site to be accessible. This includes not only our issues include not just the audible pedestrian signals and consistent curb cutouts that we address in our letter, but also entrances and exits, signage, and most importantly, communication for everyone, including the group of people with disabilities. Remember that anyone can become a member of this wonderful group at any time in their lives in just a matter of seconds. Also keep in mind that as we all age, we're going to have impairments to our mobility, our vision, our hearing, and our cognitive function, so yippee. We hope that you understand, while probably not intentional, limiting the safe access conveys a sense that certain groups of people are not wanted, needed, or valued in our community. So if we ensure that our city and county are accessible, it's going to ensure that our city and county continue to grow and thrive. Local author Sarah Smarsh, who actually grew up here in Wichita for a part of her childhood and in recent years, wrote in her book, Bone of the Bone, that the division in America today is not political. It's not red or blue. But what is discussed in the powerful rooms, such as this, and what is understood by those of us in the field. And I will tell you that just getting here today is a challenge between walkways, going through security, getting in and out of seats. It is a challenge for each of us. But as Lin-Manuel Miranda says in Hamilton, I want to be in the room where it happens. So I'm making 2 requests. One is that you each look at the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board list of appointees, and you make sure, not even for our board, but for all your boards, that all the positions are filled and that there are no vacancies. Right now, we have 7 vacancies on our board alone. I also ask, on behalf of our advisory group, that you read our minutes, communicate with your appointees, and consider our input when making decisions to make our wonderful community more accessible. And please do this sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. I appreciate the reminder about getting old, too, and needing the services. Mr. Clerk, please call the next speaker. Oh, excuse me. We have several speakers. Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. To the manager, real fast, I know that a lot of our minutes have been started being included in our consent packet. I don't remember seeing the Access Advisory Board ones. They could, but I know some of our other boards and commissions are included in our consent packet.
Councilmember, let me take a look at that. It may, because of the confusion, because it reports both to the council and the commission, but we'll go ahead and make sure that if those haven't been going out regularly, that they will.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. City Manager Layton.
Vice Mayor, if it's okay, I would like to deviate from our normal process a little bit. I thought it was appropriate to have a response. I think we really appreciated Lisa sending it to us, her correspondence from the Access Advisory Board early. And I do think this is an important enough issue that if we could just do a quick staff response, it'll let you know the direction we like to go in order to address some of the concerns expressed by the board.
Oh, that'd be fine.
Okay. Gary Jansen is going to make the
Okay,
presentation.
Gary. Andrew, you'll have to cede the microphone for a while.
All right. I'll let Gary go first.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Lisa, for your words. Vice Mayor and Council Members Gary Jansen, Public Works and Utilities. I just want to start by saying how much we value our relationship with the Access Advisory Board and the disabled community and how we move forward. We've accomplished a lot over the last 20 years when it comes to accessibility related to public infrastructure. We've done a lot as far as from an investment perspective, working with the advisory board, working with the disabled community, but we know that we can always do better. I think we've seen recently with some of the communication from the board, some of the discussions in the community and the media, there's some changes at times. Lisa talked about some vacancies on the board. One of the things we're always trying to help with is to make sure that there are good appointments to that board, try to keep positions filled. There's been some changes there. We've seen some transitions in our staff over the years across a variety of departments. And I think probably at some point in time we may have created a little bit of a disconnect. So this is a great opportunity for a fresh start and the opportunity to talk about what we might do going forward. So I thought I might hit on a few specifics just so you know what our plan looks like and about some upcoming discussions we're going to have with the Access Advisory Board and a few specifics that recently came out of some of this information. So what we'd like to do, specific to the downtown street conversions, is where a lot of this conversation started. But as Lisa said too, it's all projects, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. We want to spend some time. We're going to go downtown with a committee from the advisory board, our staff, have some further discussion of accessibility and necessary improvements. I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we need to do. But it would be good to hear from them what they're seeing very specifically so that we can make sure that we're headed on the right path. I think future projects will accommodate most of the requests. I've started spending some time with staff this last few weeks in particular, reevaluating where we're at with our projects, some of the things we are doing and we know that we aren't doing and we need to change. But this on-site evaluation with the board to look at their concerns, including discussion of technical and resource limitations, will be helpful. We do need to look at optimizing what our finite resources. There are some technical challenges when you work downtown in the core area that we need to make sure everybody is talking about and understanding what some of those challenges are. Even when you've got federal regulations and guidelines, something we're all cognizant of, we're all aware of, this still always is and will be an adaptive discussion and approach to trying to make this work for everybody. So Lisa mentioned this part. We want to make sure that all major projects, multimodal transportation and public facility projects, as well as anything that impacts road or sidewalk closures and community events, those projects, those types of things that are happening will be presented to the board and we'll summarize specific ADA improvements and impacts. We've done that in the past. I think we kind of strayed from that a little bit, didn't always have, I think, the best approach, didn't have the best communication on both sides, and that might have gone a little bit by the wayside. So we'll get back to focusing on that. That's the easy part. It makes sense. It helps us understand what the concerns and what the values are moving forward. A couple more quick things I wanted to talk about. It's been a lot of talk about accessible pedestrian signals, and I won't go too far into the weeds and talk about a lot of details here, but it's something that going forward with all new projects, anytime we put in a new signal, significant upgrades to a traffic signal, we will be installing accessible pedestrian signals. What we'd like to do on existing intersections, existing signals, is to do an evaluation of specific areas, talk about the challenges, make sure this is a strategic approach to what we do going forward. We don't want this to be a barrier for making sure that this happens. These upgrades are costly, they're hard to maintain. We've seen over time that the technology is not reliable. Some communities have stepped away from APS because of that very reason. We want to find a way to overcome that. In the past, we got Envision engaged. We're going to try to see if we can do the same because they've got some expertise in this area. They work specifically with clients and that are part of the blind and visually impaired community. They've been able to advise us where it makes the most sense strategically for deployment of accessible pedestrian signals. So we're going to talk to them about that too and try to wrap this all together. All of this stuff I've talked about with our recommended plan will be presented to the board at the next meeting on July 23rd. We'll take off from there, see if we can figure out what to do next with some on-site meetings. This is not new territory to us. I'm confident that we can forge a path forward, a collaborative path forward, and make sure we get back on track. But I just kind of want to let you know what we're looking at, where we're going, and we're excited to, like I said, to kind of have a fresh start here and be able to move forward with the board on future projects. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Gary? No? Thank you, Gary. Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Nothing for you, Gary. I just want to thank Mrs. Veda for coming up. Holding us accountable is definitely part of the kind of the job description of the residents of the city who's paying the taxes that pay for us to do things. I would also like to mention that in the Parks Master Plan, we will be emphasizing accessibility as well moving forward. That's something that we have the master plan coming up here in the next year or so, and we want to make sure that every child and every resident who wants to come out and enjoy our parks and playgrounds has the ability to do so as well. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention as well, that we're listening, and we can always do better, but we are going to keep moving forward and improving our services for all of Wichita.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next speaker?
Paige Regatz, propose repeal of 5.70.10 restroom ordinance.
Is Paige present? If not, we'll go to the next speaker.
Jim Underwood, West Maple Street replacement.
Jim Underwood, 142 South St. Paul. Vice Mayor, members of council, thank you for letting me speak today. I attended a DAB meeting. There was a presentation. I have exceptions to what was presented. I wanted to express those opinions. The project is 2 miles of city-county road, which is going to become all city. It's bordered by 2 drainage ditches on each side, 2 to 3 feet deep, near 151st, up to 10 foot deep on the north. It was stated there would be minimal dirt work. Having been in construction for many years, I can tell you this means there's going to be tremendous dirt work. The ditches themselves will have to be moved a minimum of 18 feet each, or tubed or boxed, put in the ground. That's a lot of expense. Boxed means CBC, concrete box culvert. It was also questioned by a lady in the audience about the intersection at 151st. It was stated it's going to be a traffic circle and that it was essentially the same size as a right-angle intersection. I took exception to this. You'll find that the diameters of traffic circles are set by the Code of Federal Regulations, CFRs, which all federal money is expended under, and it determines their diameter and therefore circumference by the incoming and outgoing speeds. It has nothing to do with the desire for how big it is. It is required to be a minimum size. It was also stated by the lady in the audience that 151st, north of Maple, is all dirt. If it ever got paved, traffic would increase tremendously. The statistics given for traffic flows and counts, we were not given when they were taken. On a dirt road, there are 5 factors that affect traffic: snow, ice, rain, drought, and the human factor of how well it's maintained. When a road is paved, those basically go away except for snow removal and periodic maintenance. The further stated that there were going to be 2 sidewalks, one 6-foot, one 10-foot, adjacent to the roadway. Referring back to the CFRs, once a traffic way reaches a certain speed, sidewalks cannot be adjacent to the traffic way. They have to be separated. This is an arterial street. It's open to all traffic. It's open at a speed greater than 40 miles an hour. And you have a semi going down the road, it's easy to catch a curb and pop the truck up over the curb. The primary users of these sidewalks are Goddard school children being dropped off by their school buses. Putting them next to a traffic way with no separation is not a good point. I apologize. Standing is a little difficult today. I'm fine, Don. I'm fine.
Jim, do you need the remote mic as well?
I'll finish up here quickly. Also, it was not stated that any of the other stakeholders in this area were consulted. I hope they were, but you're looking at the county commission, county road and bridge, county fire, county law enforcement, EMS, Goddard School District, and Goddard School bus drivers. They should all be consulted. They will have opinions that count heavily for the safety of their children and the safety of the children out there. Bear in mind, a good portion of this road will remain in the county until the future, and therefore is subject to county enforcement. I would also like to point out that the traffic circle does not have pedestrian crosswalks on it like a city intersection does. This is a detriment for people wanting to cross that. Granted, there's not a whole lot of foot traffic out there right now, but you still have your school children and they're going to use those sidewalks. It would be better if 151st and Maple was a right-angle intersection with full traffic control. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Jim, thank you for being involved, and thank you for coming to most of my district advisory boards. Also, thank you for being my appointee to the Access Advisory Board as well, and for your service to the community there. To address a few of the things, I have been in consultation with Commissioner Wise, who represents that part of the community. Her and I met last week about the project. I've also reached out to the school district and been in communication with them as well, and that'll continue as this is a joint project to connect both the parcels that's county-owned and then also city-owned. This weekend, I attended the Myers Windows Estate HOA, as well as the Auburn Hills HOA that I hosted a town hall with that about 80 people showed up to a month ago. And so I know that staff was present at both of those meetings to answer questions. A lot of the concerns that you addressed have been brought up at previous meetings, and staff is aware of them and is working at addressing those in the larger plan. This is just the start. I know that one of the staffers this weekend that was present at the neighborhood or at the HOA meeting actually was taking his Saturday to go to a couple that homes along the route to talk to individual owners about what this is for their property and to bring them involved in the process early to try to mitigate maybe a lot of those challenges. And so I just wanted to maybe ease some of those concerns. Thank you for speaking today and continue to engage in the process in the future as well.
Thank you. Also, this is, where's District 5, my District 2? I've seen a lot of the plans, and the sidewalks will be off of the street, not on the street. They will also, there is also pedestrian crossings at the roundabout. They're moved out a bit to be safer. So there is that too. And now I think the county does begin at 167th. So it is in the city. So, but thank you for coming and thank you for speaking. Mr. Clerk, please call the next item.
Emily Coelho, City Council duties.
Good morning. I'm Emily Coelho in Greenleaf Court in District 2. The Ethics Board recently validated a claim from a small group of people in the community who had said that their feelings were hurt by Mayor Wu. And isn't it amazing in today's world that the people who complain that their feelings are getting hurt are the real bullies of our society? Has anyone noticed that? And how unserious are we as a community that such a claim wasn't laughed at and dismissed immediately, but was investigated for weeks? What a colossal waste of time. Mayor Wu had been accused of discrimination, but the Ethics Board had concluded that, quote, she didn't fulfill her duties by not working in cooperation with other officials, end quote, because she declined to read a piece of paper out loud at a meeting. And I can assure you that most voters do not view reading or signing proclamations and all of the staff work that accompanies it as the City Council's important duties. You've actually been hired for a very serious job, which is to operate our city budget, to fill potholes, to fund the infrastructure, to pay the first responders, to keep our crime low. The pressing needs that benefit all residents. Today, I'm asking the City Council to consider ending the practice of proclamations so you can focus on the full-time job you were elected to do, which is to operate our city budget and sustain our infrastructure. And lastly, on an incredibly serious note, I'm asking for prayers for those people in our community who are confused and unsatisfied with their bodies. To their friends and family, validating their identity claims is not an act of love. In fact, it's cruel. Confronting their mental health of your loved ones might be very difficult in the short term, but I'm telling you, your loved one needs the truth, and they need for you to tell them, and it's the only way. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We have one more spot, if anyone would like to come forward and speak. Seeing none. Oh, Andrew got up just in time.
Good morning, City Council and City Manager. I just want to say thank you, and I have a challenge for you. Take a time out of your day to walk downtown Wichita and seeing the two-way conversions that you guys did, and I challenge you guys to walk that, because it's a little bit of a problem, and for the disability community and for the blind community. And I am, really excited that, the city is moving in a good, solid, good way. But we need to work a lot more. We need you guys to work a lot more. And I challenge you to walk this city on an afternoon. Because I do. I walk these cities. I walk the sidewalk. And now that I have my third guide dog, I'll be walking the city a little bit more. And I want it accessible for all. And it's time we do that. And so my challenge for you, once again, is to walk. Not take your cars, but actually walk and take the bus. And you will see some of the problems that we need to do in the city of Wichita. And other cities are doing it. It's time. It's the 21st century. We're a big city. We need to start acting like a big city. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Always good to see you. Mr. Clerk, please call next item. Oh, excuse me. Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This isn't to the last speaker. Just something that was sitting on my heart. I believe that every individual, as a man of faith, needs prayer. But I just have to continue to challenge people's identity, who they are, is not a mental health condition. It's not something that needs additional prayer. People are who they are. You're born how you are, who you are. And I think some of the challenges we continue to face in society is when we other folks who are not others. We're all humans. We are who we are. And when we, I believe, engage in that type of dialogue, it begins to minimize other folks. And I just always want to highlight we should respect people for who they are. In regard to the first comment, our jobs are vast as council members. We're also governed by codes and ordinances. As someone who's also been found in violation of the ethics policy that I helped create, there are things that you are supposed to do in certain ways, and the ethics board had their own finding for one of us, as they did with me. I encourage people to read all the municipal codes, especially people who want to run for these seats, to understand what that is, our responsibilities. It's not about beliefs, but there are things that it says that we shall do and shall not do, can do, may do. All of those words are important. So I encourage people to read all the reports, also mine. Again, they had a finding on me, and I own that. But we helped craft the ethics policy for a specific reason, to ensure things that were happening or assumed to be happening before would not happen. And all of that was talked about in the public setting at this bench, voted on, discussed in the public. So I just want to encourage people to go to the site, read all those reports, be informed on that. And also, as we talk about praying for others and showing the love of Jesus, let's love everyone. We are who we are as humans.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
Consent agenda items 1 through 17.
Any council member like to pull any of the items, 1 to 17? Seeing none, I move that we approve the council consent agenda items 1 through 17.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, will you please have the roll? Consent items 1 to 17 passes 6-0. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
Board of Bids and Contracts dated July 7, 2025.
Morning, Vice Mayor and City Council, Josh Lauber, Department of Finance. Thank you. The Board of Bids and Contracts convened yesterday, July 14th, for the following items. For engineering, we have the 17th Street sidewalk at Railroad Crossing for Prado Construction LLC in the amount of $98,906.75. That was subject to your authorization of the new engineer's estimate and budget authorization. We, for purchasing, have the 16,000 gross vehicle weight, single cab, dual wheel tire repair truck with service body. Redirecting of an award for Don Hatton Ford Incorporated for $137,180. We have the Smart Sheet Work and Project Management System software renewal for smartsheet.com Incorporated for $58,860. We have the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement Year 1 of 3 for SHI International Corporation for $1,297,679.94. We have the on-call contractor services for treatment plant contract change order, recommending for Utility Contractors Incorporated accepting the 2025 rates listed in the Board of Bids agenda packet for 1 year, effective September 1st, 2025. We have the polyphosphate contract change order for Car Us LLC, doing business as Condi Holdings LLC, for an amended amount of $455,430. We have soda ash contract change order for Dubois Chemicals Incorporated for an amended amount of $112,050. This is how to become a vendor with the city. This is a purchasing calendar of small business resource partner events the city's hosting or participating in. And these are open public opportunities out on the street today for engagement. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, and I recommend your approval.
Any questions for Josh from the bench? Seeing none, thank you, Josh. I move that we approve the Board of Bids and Contracts dated July 15th, 2025.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please pull up the roll. Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Clerk, please call the next item.
Resolution authorizing the city manager authority to take administrative action to ensure compliance with federal grant requirements.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, Council. I am Deputy City Attorney Steve Smart, and with me from the Law Department is Mike Fessinger, our city's labor and employment attorney. And before you today is a staff proposal.
This is Mayor Wu.
Good morning, ma'am. Before you today is a staff proposal seeking temporary authority for the city manager to ensure city compliance with new federal grant recipient requirements. Federal grants fund significant portions of city essential services such as housing, transportation, law enforcement, fire, and airport infrastructure. According to the City Auditor's Office, federal funding is around $100 million annually to the city. To advance its policy agenda, the executive branch of the federal government has issued new rules, regulations, and requirements that apply to grant recipients, such as the City of Wichita. Most of those are routine and similar to previous administrations, such as the general requirement to comply with all federal laws and executive orders. The new fiscal year 2025 changes require grant recipients to certify that their organization does not operate any illegal DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion program that violates federal law, and that the organization will cooperate generally with federal law enforcement in the enforcement of immigration matters. City staff will soon be asked to certify compliance with these new requirements in order to receive fiscal 25 federal funds for the city. And failure to certify risks loss of those federal funds, and a false certification would risk civil and criminal penalties for the city and its grant signatories. At the direction of the city manager, city staff has been working diligently since January to achieve compliance. And as part of that effort, the manager directed a comprehensive citywide administrative review, led by department directors and assisted by a manager-appointed compliance review team. Additionally, staff received advice from professional organizations and solicited views of other cities regarding their approach to such compliance. Where appropriate, staff has already made administrative changes, such as removing references to rescinded executive orders in new contracts and adjusting department-level policies and procedures. Compared with years past, certifications and assurances are more detailed, with clear penalties for alleged noncompliance. Compliance is no longer viewed simply as a snapshot in time, but as a continuum that requires continued vigilance and adjustment as new directives are passed. As the federal government's fiscal year 2025 winds down, new federal directives and agency contract provisions are still being published. Each of these must be reviewed and analyzed for impact on City of Wichita programs, policies, practices, and procedures, and as well as fiscal 25 grant recipient compliance. The law department primarily views compliance as a contractual issue in our relationship with the federal government as it pertains to grants. To keep up with the volume of changes and ensure continued compliance throughout this contractual relationship, staff recommends temporary additional administrative measures be authorized by the council. The council will still review and approve all grant applications. The proposed resolution gives the sense and direction of the council, allows staff through city manager delegated authority the administrative flexibility and speed necessary to keep up with evolving compliance obligations. While the city manager already holds authority to manage routine administrative matters, the proposed resolution will authorize the city manager the temporary authority to make additional administrative changes, including suspending enforcement of an ordinance to ensure such compliance as the need arises. An example of that authority would be that the resolution would allow the city manager to grant the Diversity, Inclusion, and Civil Rights Advisory Board's request for a temporary suspension of its meetings as the city evaluates the board's strategic plan in light of new federal compliance requirements. This proposed temporary authority will expire no later than December 31st, 2025, and staff chose that date to ensure that you did not give authority to a brand new city manager. And additionally, as time goes on, we will know more regarding the administration's enforcement approach as its conflicts with other cities, states, trade organizations, and universities are addressed more fully in the courts. The December 31st, 2025 sunset also gives the council the ability to reassess in 2026. Of course, the council could revoke this authority at any time. The bottom line here is that given what is at stake regarding federal dollars, staff has been working to put the city in a safe harbor while issues and conflicts are fought and litigated elsewhere. This proposed resolution allows the city to assess compliance and respond to federal regulator concerns on a case-by-case basis while the council exercises broad oversight. The staff recommends the council approve the proposed resolution and authorize necessary signatures. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Councilman Tuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. I don't have a question for you, but I do for City Manager Layton. $100 million potentially is at risk for the city, correct?
That's a total of our annual federal assistance.
Thank you. Could you maybe highlight a few of the departments that receive the most of this federal funding?
There are two departments that we have that are highly reliant on federal funds, the Housing and Community Services, as well as our Transit Department.
Okay.
Majority of their operations are funded federally.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Also note that Mayor Wu is joining us virtually. Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A few questions. I'll probably go back and forth here. First, what happens January 1st, 2026 if we don't have more federal guidance? It rescinds back to, let's say, status quo currently. Are we at risk of losing federal funds beginning immediately January 1st, or will we reevaluate sometime in December?
I think we will be reevaluating this from today all the way through. As I mentioned, this is a continuum. New guidance is continuing to be published. I would think our risk would be lower as we would have taken any administrative actions that regulators bring up after they have authorized the funding. That would probably be the greatest time of risk as fiscal 25 comes to an end in September.
Okay, thank you. This would be a question for the manager. This is coming to this body because a lot of these funds are greater than your statutory duty. You have to bring this because some of these funds are so large that's why this body has to vote on it, correct? That you can't unilaterally implement a lot of these changes.
Councilmember, yes and no. You're right about almost all of our grants are received by the council. Mayor signs on behalf of the council to receive those grant funds. So that's one aspect of it. But there are also a number of rules, regulations, procedures, and ordinances that are in place that will require some adjustment. It doesn't pertain just to the programs that are receiving federal funds, but all of our activities across the organization, and that's what we're certifying when we sign the grant assurances.
Ordinances have been passed by this body that you would have to get authorization to be.
To amend, and that's so what this resolution would allow us to do is temporarily suspend the enforcement of ordinances when they're deemed to be in conflict with federal requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Bob, have we been threatened with any suspension of grants so far?
Councilmember, not specifically, but we've received some very strongly worded guidance from the Department of Transportation that maybe Steve could address.
Yes, sir. The Department of Transportation, the Secretary issued a memorandum to all grant recipients in April 24th of 2025. And what was striking about it was its tone and direction to grant recipients to ensure compliance with executive orders. There is language in that memorandum that suggests that any organization that has a DEI program and no further guidance on that is presumptively illegal, and that certifications made for the purpose of receiving Department of Transportation funds could result in a False Claims Act case against the recipient. So what was striking about that is the tone and the length of the letter. So no direct issues with the city of Wichita. That was in general to all DOT grant recipients, but that has what has sparked a lot of the impetus for the resolution that's before you today.
Have they given any guidance or descriptions of DEI programs that fall under that?
No, sir. They use the word what is an illegal DEI program. Mr. Fessinger can certainly give you a breakdown of illegal versus legal DEI, but the memorandum itself does not further define that, nor does any other additional guidance. In fact, that is the subject of litigation in several areas of the country. Mike can give you some more information.
Okay, appreciate that.
Good morning, Council. Mike Fessinger. I'm your labor relations attorney. DEI, as we all know, stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's often viewed as a workplace strategy that attempts to promote fair treatment amongst employees, generally with an emphasis on groups that have been the subject of historical underrepresentation, perhaps discrimination. Before I go on and talk about this, I'll just note that this area of the law right now is fluid. It's in flux. There's modern case law that discusses the differences between DEI and what amounts to discrimination. But from our perspective today, and I think the perspective of the federal administration, is that the key distinction is whether the program grants a preferential treatment to people based on their membership in a protected class versus whether the program seeks instead just to remove systemic barriers that have caused underrepresentation in the past. So legal efforts at DEI, again, attempt to remove barriers, illegal efforts at DEI grant a preferential treatment to people based upon perhaps their gender or skin color. The line between the two is unclear. It is in flux, and it's, in all candor, it's probably for attorneys today to argue about in court. Part of the reason we're advocating for this conservative course of action today is because the answer is unclear as to where that line is. And we would prefer the city to have time to see how this all shakes out over the coming months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Wu would like to comment. Mayor Wu, would you like to comment? Are we having technical difficulties or don't know?
Good morning, Council, and thank you, Steve Smart. I had a couple questions directed to City Manager Layton. The questions are in regards to were there residents who raised concerns, and if so, whom were they?
Mayor, I'm only aware of one resident who has raised a concern consistently, and that person, I don't know if it's appropriate to mention who that is, but the person has filed comments with the mayor and council as well as staff.
Do you have any other questions, Mayor? Well, we'll move on then and open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment, please come forward.
City Manager, a follow-up question. I wanted to know what's the risk for the city in terms of costly lawsuits?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't catch the last part of your question. I think the question had to do with risk. I'm not sure if there's something we can do to deal with that. Feedback we're getting.
I apologize. There's a 1-minute delay. Therefore, I just want to know what is the risk of costly lawsuits for the city?
It can be significant. In answer to a previous question, we indicated that there's about $100 million that we receive from the federal government. So there is the possibility that that could be suspended, a portion of that could be suspended or put in abeyance, and then that would force us to respond to any complaints or claims filed by the federal government. I think Steve also mentioned the possibility of being sued for false representation regarding our policies, and that would require litigation as well. Some that we could probably handle with our own staff, but some that we probably have to hire outside counsel given the nature and severity of the issues.
Thank you, City Manager. Again, an opportunity to open up to the public for any comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the bench if anybody would like to comment on this further. Councilman Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor, or Vice Mayor. Just wanted to share a few thoughts before the vote. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, and ultra-nationalist political ideology defined by a dictatorial leader, a strong central government, the suppression of opposition, and an emphasis on national unity and militarism. It fundamentally opposes democracy, liberalism, and socialism, often demanding unity behind its own ideas and leadership. Without elaborating whether you agree with my inference or not, you undoubtedly know exactly what and whom I'm referring to. That alone speaks volumes. The executive branch of the United States government continues to push the boundaries of settled law and the Constitution, infringing upon our God-given rights simply because the current occupant disagrees. A nation founded on 3 co-equal branches and checks and balances is seeing that very fabric stretched to a near breaking point. These are dark and trying times. The congressional body, which should wield power from the people's house, often yields to executive overreach, paralyzed by political fear and often shared political affiliations. Meanwhile, the judiciary, with a hand-picked majority, has granted the executive branch blanket immunity, consistently delivering victories to the executive and losses to the people. The principles we learned in school are being eroded, promises rescinded, powers increased, families torn apart, and lives changed forever. Americans are being heavily influenced by a constant barrage of misinformation from sources and institutions that should be trustworthy. While I could continue to elaborate for a long time on that, this is unfortunately nothing new to those who study history. Dr. King famously demanded that America simply be true to what it says on paper. Yet ironically, even in our founding, some were even considered only 3/5 of a person due to their race. Some were not even recognized due to their gender. And if you didn't have the fortune to own property, you too weren't recognized. Today, this governing body faces consequences forced upon us by the current failure of our system of checks and balances. Our efforts to be more equitable, more inclusive, and to improve our local government and community are in jeopardy due to the misguided sense of loss many felt and feel to this day, because more Americans were being seen, heard, and respected. And while the executive branch and many others would prefer to whitewash America, doing so is a direct threat and slap in the face to what truly makes us great, and that's our diversity. Though today's situation is the unfortunate result of our democracy being infected with a vile virus, we know that the moral arc of the universe is long and it still bends toward justice. I'm prayerful today that my no vote bends it ever so slightly more toward justice. I will be voting no today.
Councilman Ballard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would just say that the DICRAB is not a DEI program. It's a citizen advisory board to inform council and keep our policies inclusive for all residents of Wichita and make sure we are aware of all aspects of our community and focused on civil rights. I think it's important we don't lose that perspective on the council, because we can't personally represent every demographic in Wichita, and they help us to hear from more folks in our city. So for that, I'll be voting no.
Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I don't have anything prepared quite like my 2 esteemed colleagues here, but I do want to say, like most Americans, I have a political leaning. But like most Americans, there's a lot of gray area. We're all pretty much zebras. We have different stripes with different thoughts on different issues. And one that's always made sense to me is allowing local municipalities and local government to have a little more say, because they're the ones with their boots on the ground. We're the ones who see the impact in our communities. We're the ones that see what we need to do in our communities in order to move forward, to make sure that everybody has a place at the table. So when I see something like this come down, that really meshes, or it really conflicts with kind of my thoughts on local government. So for that reason, I will be voting no as well.
Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you. I do have one quick question for the manager. A no vote today, if this were to fail, would jeopardize $100 million of investment in our community, correct?
That's a fair assessment of the amount of revenue we receive, but we probably will be challenged regarding our compliance with federal guidelines, rules, regulations, and laws as they are interpreted. And so there is some jeopardy to some or all of the funding if we're found to be non-compliance.
And a majority of that is transportation and housing, serve some of the most vulnerable in our community, correct?
A significant amount of money also comes for capital projects.
Thank you. The mayor would like to speak, and we have about a 1-minute delay, so we can all just sit in silence for about 1 minute while she comes on.
I know that this is a very difficult subject, and I appreciate Councilmember Johnson, Hoheisel, and Ballard in speaking on why you're voting no. However, what I look at is that there's a risk, and weighing risk is real, and that risk is the $100 million that the city receives from the federal government specifically, and in large part to housing and transit. So I will be voting yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing no comments, I'd like to just make a comment. I agree. So we have to adjust to each administration what their agenda is. And I think that's the case here. May not agree with it, but I don't want to put risk to transportation and housing because that affects the poorest in our society. So I will be voting yes. Are there any more comments from council members? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, will you please open the roll?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I don't think there is a motion. Did you?
Oh, yes. Yes. So we'll see. Seeing none then, thank you. I will, while we make the motion to receive and file the report, approve the contracts. No, wrong one. Yeah. Thank you. We're struggling here. I would like to make the motion authorizing the city manager authority to take administrative action to ensure compliance with federal grant requirements.
If I may, Vice Mayor, may I just clarify, the motion is to approve the resolution?
To approve the resolution.
And authorize the mayor to sign?
And authorize the mayor to sign, yes. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Now, Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? We will wait for the mayor to issue her vote.
Yes.
Mayor has voted. Motion passes 4-3. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
Public hearing and request by Wichita Maple LLC for approval of a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds.
Vice Mayor, members of council, Troy Anderson, Assistant City Manager. This request comes from Wichita Maple LLC, requesting approval for the use of industrial revenue bonds. More specifically, this is in regards to a project associated with Town West Square. Town West Square has struggled over the last several years with vacancies and finding tenants to occupy the building. The group that has acquired it has done this in other areas of the nation. They've acquired some of these old, unused or underutilized former shopping centers, former malls, and are repurposing them into business parks. So this is somewhat of a proven business model, and we're really excited about what this might bring to the former Town West Square Mall. More specifically, they intend to convert the buildings into industrial warehouses, manufacturing facilities, and distribution centers. They're requesting the letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds in an amount not exceeding $20 million for the purposes of sales tax exemption. It's anticipated that some of the improvements will begin immediately. This is going to be a phased project over several years. More specifically, to fully be transparent in the complete incentive package that the owner developers are pursuing. Currently, they're pursuing the industrial revenue bond for the sales tax exemption, as there are certain construction commodities, materials that need to be acquired. There are long lead times associated with some of this stuff. But for all intents and purposes, they will be returning early next year to begin the process of applying for tax increment financing for really the bulk of and for the rest of the project. So we just wanted to be fully transparent. Today's business at hand is simply the industrial revenue bond for that sales tax exemption, but we, again, just wanted to paint the entire picture that they will also be returning to early next year for tax increment financing. The approximate value of the sales tax exemption is about $500,000, with the city share being approximately $39,000. This is our standard disclaimer, right? Revenue bonds are a mechanism for achieving a sales tax exemption, particularly in this case, a sales tax exemption only. In a revenue bond transaction, the city is not lending any money. There's no risk. Owner developer is required to achieve all of its own financing. There are no taxpayer dollars at risk, and all costs are borne by the owner applicant requesting the use of the bonds. Wichita Maple agrees to pay all costs of issuing the bonds and agrees to pay the annual origination fees. Bonds will be purchased by Wichita Maple or a related entity. Once the project's complete, bond documents that will be required for the issuance of the bond will be prepared by outside legal counsel, but as always, law department will review and approve the final form prior to the issuance of any bonds. Therefore, it is recommended today to hold a public hearing, but then ultimately close the public hearing, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. With that being said, we do have representatives from the applicant who have joined us virtually and are available for questions at the behest of City Council. Otherwise, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Troy. Any questions from the bench? Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just one real quick question. I drove by the other day. They're already at work doing some painting, signage, facade improvement. This CID will just be from this point forward?
So no CID, but yes, the industrial revenue bonds.
Or IRB, I'm sorry, I
That's
apologize.
okay. Just want to make sure that we were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
IRB for the sales tax exemption, yes. They can't achieve the sales tax exemption until the letter of intent is approved and we obtain a sales tax exemption certificate from the state. They can then use that sales tax exemption certificate on any future purchases, right, to obtain that sales tax exemption. Regarding the question, we've received a question around improvements that are made now and the implication of the tax increment financing. There are some allowances for what we kind of call in a look-back period, right? So there may be expenses that are eligible that are necessary today that once a tax increment financing district is established, that you can sort of look back and achieve the benefits from the tax increment financing district based on expenses that were incurred prior to the approval. Again, those are all kind of laid out by state law and bond council. And so, but with regards to the IRB, no, they can't get in any sales tax exemption unless they have that sales tax exemption certificate.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Glasscock.
Oh, I meant to remove my name, but thank you for the transparency of letting us know the TIF is coming as well. I appreciate knowing what request will be made later. So thank you for including that in the agenda packet.
You bet.
Seeing no more questions from the bench, we'll open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the bench. Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to again thank the applicant for making a significant investment in our community. I think it's incredibly exciting to see the project come to fruition and to see the success they've had in other communities as well. So with that, seeing nobody else on the board, I would move that the City Council close the public hearing, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second. There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, will you please open the roll? Motion passes 6-0. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
Request to set public hearings to create a Community Improvement District, CID, and adopt a redevelopment project plan for a full-service hotel located at 229 East William.
Vice Mayor, members of council, again, Troy Anderson, Assistant City Manager. So this request comes to us from a group, more specifically McClellan Hotel 1923 LLC. You'll probably hear me refer to them as McClellan throughout. But they are the current owners. They've recently acquired a couple of properties near the intersection of William and Broadway. There are 2 existing buildings on these parcels, and so McClellan wishes to renovate these 2 existing buildings and convert them into a full-service hotel. Approximately 110 keys with an additional 4,000 square feet of commercial retail space. They do have some associated parking within the former petroleum building that they will use to sort of park themselves, so to speak. And so as part of this request, they have requested assistance from the city using pay-as-you-go, CID, and tax increment financing to assist in the acquisition and construction of the project. So being that it is a pay-as-you-go request, owner-developer will pay all construction costs associated with the project, and it's only the increment that is realized, both with the sales tax that is generated and the property tax that is generated above and beyond the base value as it exists today, that will be used to reimburse the owner-developer for certain eligible expenses. Again, owner-developer assumes all risk, no risk to the taxpayer. The project is currently estimated at about $41 million project. We've identified some of the maximum eligible amounts that are eligible for reimbursement under the Community Improvement District Act and law. About $5.7 million. Redevelopment project costs eligible for TIF, about $4.5 million. So again, owner-developers request the use of on a pay-as-you-go basis. City will not issue any debt for the project. More specifically, kind of how this works, right, are proceeds. So those CID sales tax proceeds as well as the property tax proceeds will come into the city, be held by the city, and then dispersed pursuant to a development agreement until the maximum amounts in the development agreement have been realized. Specifically because that development agreement will come to you, and the purpose for this meeting here today is to set the public hearings. Right, so those public hearings are currently slated for August 19th, 2025. With that being said, it's recommended the City Council accept the CID petition and adopt the resolution setting the public hearings for August 19th, 2025. And I do believe we have representatives from the applicant here in the audience today, but otherwise I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions from the bench for Troy? Seeing no questions, I'd like to open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on this. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the bench. This resides in Councilman District 1, Councilman Johnson's district.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Looking forward to the public hearing on this. I'll probably say more at the public hearing. I would move that the City Council accept the CID petition and adopt the resolution setting the public hearing.
Second. There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, will you open the roll? What do you have? Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
2026 Annual Operating Budget and 2026 to 2035 Capital Improvement Program.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, good morning. I am proud to present my 41st operating budget and my last to this council. It's for the 2026 operating year and fiscal year, and we also to present the 2026-2035 10-year proposed capital improvement program. Excuse me. I want to thank the folks who have gotten us to this point. First of all, the residents that have participated through the participation in the community survey, giving us feedback at DAB meetings, and working through our online simulator. To date, we've received almost 750 simulator responses, and we're still encouraging people to submit. I want to thank the council for all of your hard work starting in January to this point. I am extremely proud of the work that was done to put the strategic plan together. If you look in the operating budget and also in the CIP, we have that document incorporated into both of those plans, and I think it is some of the most exceptional work that I've seen the council do in the 16 years that I've been here, and it's provided us great guidance as we put the budget together. And then I also want to thank all of our employees, starting with the finance department and budget office for the work they've done, but all of our departments for developing tactics that are in alignment with your strategic plan and helping us get to where we are today. Just a reminder, the community survey was actually distributed last year, and we received the results in January of this year, and those were discussed with you. The DAB meetings were conducted in May. The simulator, as I said, is still open. It'll be open through August 19th. And of course, anybody that wants to follow the work that the council's done to this point can get on YouTube and look at videos from our budget workshops. The reminder of the survey results, this is a graphic depiction of those results. What we've typically done in the past is focus on this magenta quadrant. It's the services that are ranked as highly important to our residents, but where they believe we have additional work to do and the quality of our service is lower than desired. The mayor talks about this frequently: economic developments, street repair, affordable housing, and homelessness services, as well as crime prevention, are the most significant issues that the community wants us to focus on. And the budget that's being presented to you today does focus on those important items. Just a real brief review on the strategic plan. There were 5 budget workshops that you conducted starting in January, running through June. The strategic plan was a specific focus in January, April, and May. And just a reminder that what we did, in fact, let me go to this. We started with the pillars, which were reflective of our mission statement. We then had the council adopt goals, which started to operationalize, the pillars, strategies that helped us move towards achievement of the goals, and then the tactics, which are the day-to-day activities or specific activities to achieve your desired results and outcomes. Graphic depiction of the budget process that I just described. Your input from strategic plan, as well as community input and engagement, has moved us to where we are today with a recommended budget, which will hopefully then move us in the direction of our highest priorities as reflected in by all of that activity by the council as well as our citizens. So let's go to the mandatory pie charts. Total budget is it's approximately $778 million. If you look on the left, we have 3 major funding sources for our total operating budget, our total budget: charges for services, property tax, and sales tax. Charges for services is a significant revenue source because this portion of the budget includes our utilities, primarily water and sewer. You'll also on the right see how our money is spent or is anticipated to be spent in 2026, with salaries and benefits being the largest piece of that pie, but contractuals and debt service also representing significant segments. The general fund, which is really considered our operating budget, at least for our basic services, property tax is the #1 revenue source, which we've talked a lot about. Franchise fees and sales tax also contribute significantly to that budget. It's a $342.8 million recommended operating budget for 2026. A reminder that 76% of our total expenditures would go to police, fire, and public works and utilities in the operating budget. And if you look at the categories that are funded, salaries and benefits are take up the predominant share of the operating budget at 76%. We're presenting to you today a balanced 26 and a balanced 27 operating budget. Because of significant increases in our property valuations, we believe that we can get to the point of a balanced budget for both of those years and still come in with a $500,000 reduction for 2026. This simply repeats what I said regarding being balanced through 2027. I will point out that we are in good financial position thanks to the actions of not just this council, but previous council as well. We have over $50 million in our general fund balance projected through 2027. And through the end of that year, we believe we'll still have $31.7 million in the stabilization reserve. Long term, as we try to project where we're going after 2027, there are a number of factors that can affect our projections: interest earnings, employee costs, any changes in service levels, and of course, any changes in our, or any underspending in the operating budget. I apologize for the titles here, but this represents our projections for 2025, 26, 27, 28, and 29. You'll see that based on current assumptions on revenues and expenses, we're projecting deficits in 28 and 29, but this is very early in the projection process, and a lot of things can happen between now and even next year when you'll be reviewing the long-range plan again. I will remind you that at the end of last year's budget process, you asked us to look at a number of efficiency and process improvement projects. The staff worked diligently on those through 2024 and into early 2025. And we presented those to you in May. I received some guidance. We adjusted some of our thoughts and recommendations, and now the adjusted strategies are included in the operating budget that's being presented to you today. Just a reminder, what we did in terms of process improvements included changes in street maintenance, park maintenance, court operations, and equitable management. And that's primarily our mid-level managers in the organization. That will result in about $2.5 million in savings in 2026. And then we had some budget reduction options that we shared with you in May and June that will result in more favorable health insurance rates. I won't go through all of these, but some other changes in programs that we don't believe will have a significant impact on service levels. Let's get into the details about what this budget provides the public. And again, a reminder that these are all reflected in your strategic plan and what you wanted us to get accomplished over the next 2 years. This budget anticipates that during the next year, we'll have a cost recovery study, an exhaustive one, that will allow us to adjust fees accordingly. We're talking about centralizing some of our financial services. We are changing our approach on community engagement, and we'll prepare a new plan for that to be implemented in 2026. We're doubling down on our development program for our supervisors because we understand their important role in this organization. And then we're doing a review of our employee benefit program to hopefully modernize our employee benefits in a way that's consistent with the desires of our employees. So all of our employee groups will be actively involved in that discussion. In terms of the pillar on keeping Wichita safe, we're looking at working with Sedgwick County on a pilot project to come up with a more comprehensive approach to EMS service inside the city of Wichita. We are implementing the Drone as First Responder pilot project in the Broadway corridor and hope to see some great results in our ability to have a quicker response to emergencies in the corridor, primarily in terms of police response. Also, the next two items are an effort by the police department to be much more oriented towards data, the use of data in fighting crime and more importantly in crime prevention activities. And the last is an ongoing effort to make sure that our police department has the resources they need to deal with behavioral health issues that they encounter in the community, especially among our homeless population. terms of growing our economy, that pillar, we are looking at revising our cultural funding program and the formula that's used to disperse funds to cultural agencies. We're excited about implementation of the transit study and the new network that we think will be much more effective, probably purging some of the less effective routes and putting in some new routes in place that will benefit our riders. And then a number of efforts on affordable housing, recognizing again that is one of the community's top concerns. Also excited about the water reuse study and hopefully coming up with a permanent solution to the periodic droughts that this community has experienced over the years. Want to get a little more analytical about our park maintenance efforts and improving and maintaining our park infrastructure. So we'll be refining a decision support tool for all of our park infrastructure. That'll also be done in conjunction with or at the same time as the update of the park master plan. One of the items under Living Well that's near and dear to my heart is the desire to improve our early childhood reading readiness in this community, recognizing that our future depends on how our kids read before they get to kindergarten and definitely as they progress through elementary school and up. So that's an effort that we're spending more resources on in 2026. Another priority of the council has been to play a meaningful role in addressing homelessness in this community, and this budget includes funding to continue to assist with shelter and support services, and most importantly, supportive housing to provide a more permanent solution for those who are unhoused today. And then we're embarking on the comprehensive plan update. That plan is a little over 10 years old now and should be updated. So that is all I have on the operating budget. I do want to talk a little bit about the SMID because it's going to be a little different than it has been in the past. Up until recently, the mill levy has been at about 6.8 mills for the SMID. However, they have asked for that to go up to the maximum amount, which is 10 mills, in order to implement a clean and safe program for the downtown so that we can improve not just the appearance, but the feeling of safety for those who are regular users in the downtown. And as we see continued growth, Troy talked about that with a project that's anticipated around the Biomed Center. We want folks to feel comfortable being in the downtown all times of the day and night. Vice Mayor, I can stop there on the operating budget, or I can keep going and go through the CIP and then take questions on any of the documents. Up to you.
What's the will of the council? Keep going.
All right. I'm on a roll. Thanks. Pie chart for the CIP. I always like to remind people that we truly are a big business. This is a $3 billion 10-year plan. Our revenue sources are very diverse for the CIP, more so than for the operating budget. I won't go through all of those sources, but you'll see a number of local funding as well as outside funding sources that support our CIP. Also very diverse in terms of how we spend our funds, but a big chunk goes to our utilities, water and sewer, also to our street system, and to our public facilities. Our debt service fund mill levy rate is 7 mills for 2026, and it'll slightly drop in 2027 in order to be able to shift some funds to the general fund. Again, the council's work in the strategic plan has guided the CIP as well as the community investments plan, which we must comply with every year. Our GO debt is consistent with the council's pre-established guidelines, and all of our fund balance meet your benchmarks. Just a reminder that in preparing this CIP, there are several strategies and goals from the strategic plan that were incorporated into the document. I won't repeat these to you. You can read them on the screen, but I just want you to know that your efforts in the strategic plan really guided us in the infrastructure planning, not just the operating budget planning. Just a few highlights from the CIP. This 10-year plan provides for the construction of 2 new police stations, 9 new fire stations, significant fire apparatus replacement, and a police training facility. It also devotes significant dollars to the upgrading of our city facilities, something that I think has been ignored for a little too long. It allows for significant projects, bridge repair and rehabilitation projects, an expansion project along K96, a number of street improvement projects. I just highlight a few here just because of their scope and their cost. Some improvements on 13th Street, 21st Street, Maple, and in downtown. You look at what we're doing out at the airport, significant amount of dollars put into the replacement of existing pavement, runways and taxiways, significant replacement of heavy equipment. We're continuing to work with Sedgwick County to look for opportunities to purchase equipment together or share uses. Although it's been a little hard to identify opportunities that we know will work, we're still continuing that study. Significant dollars put aside for replacement of our bus fleet, and as you know, always need to be diligent in terms of improvements to our water and sewer system. In terms of living well, this CIP, I think, emphasizes a little more than in the past the maintenance of cultural facilities that are owned by the city and operated by other groups. And then there is a concept for a new sports complex in Dr. Glendale Dye Park that is out in a few years. That is what I have on the CIP. Let me just go through the budget process a little bit, because this is important to note in terms of what you're doing today and what you'll be doing in the future. The city's required to, I'm going to probably read from the screen here to make sure I get this all accurate, because I want to make sure we all fully understand the process. We're required to publish an official notice setting the maximum taxes to be levied by taxing fund, the maximum expenditures by fund, and the date of the official budget adoption. City must notify the county clerk by July 20th that there's an intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Just a reminder, any increase in taxes levied triggers the R&R. Reducing the mill levy rate as proposed still requires the city to exceed R&R. Approving the intent to exceed R&R today is only a commitment to hold a hearing on whether to exceed it, which is would be scheduled for August 26th. Notification of the intent to exceed the R&R must be provided to the clerk. I already told you that. Without the notification of intent, the timeline for this process changes. And so if you don't approve that today, then the final adoption will be moved to August 12th, and available revenues will decrease by $11.5 million. This is just a quick table to show you the taxes that were levied in 25 basically would be required to be the same amount in 26 under R&R, and then what you're proposing with the $500,000 reduction is the $175.6 million property taxes levied. You have 3 hearings scheduled after today. The first is an evening hearing on August 7th. Also, there'll be another one, a daytime hearing on August 19th. That's the same day that the budget simulator closes. And then you have your final hearing on R&R, the adoption of the operating budget, and adoption of the capital improvement program on August 26th. So the recommended action today is to authorize publication of notice setting the public hearing for August 26, 2025, and establishing the maximum tax levies and expenditure authority included in the proposed budget. Approving the notification of indication to exceed the revenue neutral rate and the R&R public hearing date of August 26, 2025. Approving the first reading of budget ordinances and receiving and file the 2026 to 2035, proposed capital improvement program. Mayor or Vice Mayor, there's a reason the mayor left, because you have a very long motion that you'll have to make that reflects all of this.
Looking for volunteers.
Well, I don't want to get in trouble. I believe that's your responsibility. So with that, I am glad to answer any questions regarding this document.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A couple of questions here. One, I did have some people reaching out, asking about the fire budget. The field medical training officer, we have 3 positions listed on there. Has that position been filled over the last couple of years?
I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Okay, yeah, just a little bit of
We'll
clarification.
get information on that for you.
I appreciate that. And then also questions about the 4th Battalion chief positions, if those have been added to the budget or not. Okay, second thing is, so this, if we approve this today, that locks in the mill levy reduction
It does, yes.
at a $0.5
It does.
Okay, I'm not sure that one's been necessarily discussed fully on council here, the implications of that one. So I'm curious if we continue that discussion later. It doesn't mean that we necessarily won't lower the mill levy. I just don't want it locked in yet. So I'm just bringing that up.
If I could clarify, the only way that happens is if you approve the rate that is in existence today. I think then they would have the ability to drop that in the future. Is that right? Or are they locking in on the rate period? The total, but if they were to lock in at a higher total, they still have the ability to drop that, which would include the rate. All right, that's the only way that you could get that done. So either a significant discussion today, or you'd have to go back to the existing rate.
Okay, and the other part of that is, I brought it up before, I would like to see more discussion on the homestead tax rebate. That's targeted towards senior citizens, disabled veterans, and people who are in low income brackets, property tax relief for them. I think that's a lot bigger bang for the buck than lowering the mill a $0.5. So I guess we can chat about that a little more later.
Depending on what action you take today, and this probably a good time to talk about it today. Yes.
All right, thank you.
One thing, you asked a number of questions, and I expected you to ask one question that you didn't, and I forgot to mention it. I have seen a lot of social media chatter regarding tree planting, and I just want you to know, at the council direction, at our last workshop, we put that money back into the operating budget. So there is full funding, as there had been previously, for tree planting.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Maggie's the tree lady up here, so I usually rely on her to ask those hard-hitting questions. All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Bob, just one technical question. In the recommended action, one of the pieces is to set a maximum amount of taxes levied for the city of Wichita at $175 million or so. Is that based upon the 32.316 mills?
The $0.5 reduction. Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, sorry.
I see Mark shaking his head. Okay.
Yes.
So if, just going along with Councilmember Hoheisel's comment, if the council did say want to maintain at 32.816, would that number change? Would that have to be mentioned today in the motion, or could staff adjust to that since it's not in the motion?
I believe you'd have to put that in the motion.
Okay. So what is that number then?
We'll get that for you. Mark, you have.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from the bench? Questions? Seeing none, we'll open up for public comment. Anyone who'd like to comment on the proposed budget? Seeing none, we bring it back to the bench. Questions or comments from the bench? Councilman Tuttle.
Thank you. I just want to make a few comments. I want to thank Bob so much. I'm glad your 41st budget is going to be your best budget, right? I think that this is my 6th or 7th. I've been doing it since 2019, and this has been the most robust process we've had. So glad to always have your input and your expertise. Also want to thank our friends in finance. I know that this is your labor of love every year. It's coming to fruition, so thank you for all of your hard work. I also want to thank all the departments and the department heads within the city. Sometimes we fail to forget how much time and energy they also put into this process. I like the new process, how we developed it around our mission. I think it gave everybody an opportunity to just take a pause back and think about our mission, think about it in different ways, and all the ways that probably every department contributes to the 4 pillars. So I was really impressed with that process. I also want to thank communications. They do so much to make sure that the word gets out about the budget simulator when we're having town halls, when it's going to be at our district advisory board. So to our friends in communications, we probably don't thank you enough, but always should. And then I always want to thank the community, folks who came to our district advisory board meetings, who contributed to the community survey, all the folks who have given us feedback and input. It really does matter. It helps us shape our budget. And so without community input, we wouldn't have the product that we have today. I have said every year since 2019, where you allocate your treasure is a reflection of your values, and voting on the budget is the most important vote that I make every year. So I'm anticipating coming to the finish line here with a budget that we can all be proud of. So thank you so much.
Councilman Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a technical question for Mark. That question is, you gave me the approximate number of 2.7 million would be added to the 175 if we maintained. If you added one more to that, how much would that be?
One more mil to that?
Yeah.
Approximately $5.4 million, probably.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask the city manager in the future budgets, CIP budgets, we just opened the second phase of Proclamations Wetlands. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Recommend everyone go out there and see it, but when you go out there to see it, you want the 2 paths to connect, which is phase 3. So if we can find room in the budget in the future, maybe 28, 29, to put that in the CIP, I would appreciate that and appreciate the discussion on that. Any more comments from the bench? Councilman Johnson?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Before I say what I think about this, I do want to thank staff for all the work that you have done to address what you've heard from us on the council and come up with a budget that reflects what you were hearing, specifically around reducing the meal, half a meal. I am not supportive of that. I've given a lot of reasons publicly, but I believe it is performative. I think one of us said symbolic to give a $14 benefit to the average resident, and I don't believe the $14 annually is worth the impact to local government with the services that we provide, the demands that we're hearing, and the quality of life initiatives that people really depend on. My joke is always, we haven't increased the mill levy since the greatest performer ever performed in the Super Bowl. That'd be Michael Jackson back in the early 90s. And now we are looking at reducing it. I understand some of the public conversation about property taxes, but if the world has changed as much as it has in this time and we haven't increased it to provide better services and more resources for our residents, to me, it just doesn't make sense to reduce it. And again, for a symbolic $14 that you'll eat up with a few gallons of gas or one pizza, or if you or someone who goes to Starbucks, usually one of their drinks is like $28. So I think that something performative like that is not worth doing today. I do believe strongly that we need to either increase the mill levy or at least maintain to help this council, future councils, have an easier time serving our citizens in the future. Just like councils in the past have taken revenues and put it into the rainy day fund, which is helping us now. If we choose to, again, symbolically do the $14, a $2.3 or $2.7 million impact to the budget, that likely is not going to change in the future. Even as we've talked about a proposed sales tax, that is up to you all, the voters, to say yes or no to. We just put it on the ballot. If that doesn't happen, we again jeopardize a lot of the services with the city, and with so much of our budget going to salaries, when those folks who are emailing us telling us to cut, that means that we will be letting people go at some point. I don't think that is what citizens really want. There may be a few, but overall, I think the majority of Wichita wants the investments in this. So I asked for some specific numbers because I wanted to move that the city council raise the mill levy, not cut the mill levy. Therefore, my motion is to set the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate and proposed 2026 budget, including the tax increment finance districts and sub-supporting municipal improvement district, and the recertification for the ice rink, Century 2 sewer and affordable housing funds, August 26, 2025. Authorize the publication of the formal public hearing notices, approve the first reading of the ordinances on the general tax levy for the city of Wichita, TIF districts, and SMID. Authorize the staff to make any technical adjustments required to comply with the state statute. Set a maximum amount of taxes levied for the city of Wichita at $183,701,326 based on an anticipated mill levy of 33.816 and an estimated assessed valuation of $5,433,881,828. Set the maximum amount of taxes levied for the self-supported municipal improvement district at $1,396,024 based on an estimated levy of 10 mills and an estimated assessed valuation of $139,602,418. Authorize staff to notify the subject county clerk of the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for the city of Wichita taxing funds and the SMID taxing fund, and receive and file the 2026-2035 proposed capital improvement program.
There's a motion. Councilman Tuttle.
Thank you. Could you repeat that? No, I'm just kidding. And I guess this is a question for Councilmember Johnson or for Councilmember, or excuse me, for legal, and I understand we're waiting on a second, but can you just synthesize what your motion was? I'm sorry, I was trying to pay attention, but I'm not an audio learner, so what exactly are you proposing?
In short, my motion was to raise the mill levy 1.
So not follow the proposed manager's budget, but to change the manager's budget to have it be an increase of a mill
Yes,
levy?
it was to not follow the budget that came in with the half mill drop, but to not only keep where we are, but add 1. So what I suggested, I guess, would be $1.5 million over what is being proposed.
And legal, correct me, we have a motion and we're anticipating a second.
Well, we have a motion. I have not heard a second.
That's what I mean, we haven't heard a second. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I agree with much of what Councilmember Johnson has said. I don't feel like this is the time to necessarily raise taxes in the mill levy, so I'm sorry you had to burn off all those calories with that long motion there, but yeah, I just want to make a note. I can't support any tax increases at this time.
Councilman Johnson again?
Yep. Thanks, Vice Mayor. Just for clarification before I continue, Jennifer, that motion did die for lack of a second, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. I have a second motion. I would like to move that we maintain our mill levy rather than reduce it. Therefore, I would move that the City Council set the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate and the proposed 2026 budget, including the tax increment finance districts and the self-supporting municipal improvement district, and the recertification for the ice rink Century 2 Sewer and Affordable Housing Funds, August 26, 2025. Authorize publication of the formal public hearing notices. Approve the first reading of the ordinances for the general tax levy for the City of Wichita, TIF districts, and SMID. Authorize staff to make any technical adjustments required to comply with state statute. Set a maximum amount of taxes levied for the City of Wichita at $178,301,326 based on an anticipated mill levy of 32.816 mills and an estimated assessed valuation of $5,433,881,828. Set the maximum amount of taxes levied for the self-supporting municipal improvement district at $1,396,024 based on an estimated levy of 10 mills and an estimated assessed valuation of $139,602,418. Authorize staff to notify the subject county clerk of the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for the City of Wichita taxing funds and the SMID taxing fund, and receive and file the 2026-2035 proposed capital improvement program.
Thank you. And that would be a motion, correct? Since the first motion died, that would be the motion.
That is correct.
Okay, I would like to make a substitute motion.
Vice Mayor, just so I can make sure we're clear, Councilmember, what number did you use as the maximum amount of taxes levied?
The maximum amount was $178,301,326 based on the mill levy that maintains where we're at 32.816.
So it may not make a difference, I mean, depending how you all vote, but I want to make sure that number is accurate. It's actually, if you would substitute this, it's $178,318,266.
I would like to make that change to my motion.
I'll second his motion.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, point of clarification. Legal, if this motion were to fail, then we would be allowed to offer a different motion entirely, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to make a substitute motion right now?
I've not heard a second.
I seconded.
Oh, I did not hear it, and it's not showing on the screen.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. I would like to make a substitute motion. That motion is to take the recommended action, set the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate and the proposed 2026 budget, including the tax incremental financing districts and the self-supporting municipal improvement district, and the recertification for the ice rink, Century 2, sewer, and affordable housing funds, August 26, 2025. Authorize the publication of the formal public hearing notice, approve the first reading of the ordinance for the general tax levy for the City of Wichita, TIF districts, and SMID. Authorize staff to make any technical adjustments required to comply with the state statute. Set a maximum amount of taxes levied for the City of Wichita at $175,601,326 based on anticipated mill levy of 32.316 mills, an estimated assessed valuation of $5,433,881,828. Set the maximum amount of taxes levied by the self-supporting municipal improvement district at $1,396,024 based on an estimated mill levy of 10 mills and an estimated assessed valuation of $139,602,418. Authorize the staff to notify the Sedgwick County Clerk of the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for the City of Wichita taxing funds and the SMID taxing fund, and receive and file the 2026 to 2035 proposed capital improvement program.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second on the substitute motion. Any comments? Councilman Johnson.
I have.
Councilman Johnson.
My name had stayed there, but I will say I am very supportive, again, of all the work that staff did and the programs and services we provide and all of the wonderful people here at the city of Wichita that work day in and day out to make local government more responsive to the community, provide the services that are necessary. Today, I cannot support this. I would be reluctant in supporting something that maintains because I've continually said that what I've seen over the years is we truly need to invest more in these services. But I cannot vote for a symbolic $14 benefit to the average Wichitan that I know will put some strains on local government in the future. So I will unfortunately not be supporting this. It has nothing to do with our staff that are full of incredible people doing incredible things, but the symbolic nature of this is just something that I cannot support.
Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a point of clarification from staff. If this is deadlocked at 3, what happens to that motion? And then if the other motion is deadlocked at 3, what happens? So on and so forth.
So we have to have council authority by the 20th. Is that right? We have to file with the county by the 20th. So you'd have to have a special meeting if you can't reach agreement today.
I think we do have the mayor online, and she said she will vote.
Oh, okay.
So we will have
Okay.
a majority.
Thank
Councilman Tuttle.
I keep doing that today. Thank you. I just want to clarify with legal, because I've had a few people asking me what's going on. So we had a substitute motion to decrease the mill levy that failed. Excuse me, we had a motion to decrease the mill levy that failed. Then we had a motion to maintain, and that then was offered a substitute motion to have the proposed manager's budget come to us.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody here, everybody who's watching online, in their offices and their homes, because people are a little bit confused. This is an interesting situation that we haven't probably experienced in the past. So just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Just to clarify, the first motion Councilman Johnson made was to increase it by $1 million. The second motion was to keep the full valuation of the assessed values. The substitute motion I made was to take the $500,000 decrease. Thank you. Councilman Glasscock.
Mr. Manager, just a quick question again. This would be the first time in nearly 40 years that the city council would be reducing the mill levy?
In at least 30 years.
30 years if this were to pass right now?
Right.
Thank you.
Councilman Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I was wondering if the Vice Mayor would accept a friendly amendment to lower the mill levy by $0.25 instead of $0.50. And again, this could also have further discussion. It doesn't mean we're locked in at reducing it just $0.25, but it would allow for additional discussion in the upcoming month.
I appreciate that, but I'm going to stay with the motion that I made. Substitute motion I made. Thank you, though.
All right.
Any other comment? Seeing none, we'll open it up. Have we already made public comment yet? We have, haven't we? Yeah.
Becky, just to confirm, there was a second by Councilmember Tuttle. I just don't see
Yes.
it. Okay.
There was a second, a motion, a second. We have opened it up for comment. Do we need to do it again since it's a substitute motion?
No.
Okay. We brought it back to the bench, so Mr. Clerk, will you please open up the roll?
Mayor Wu, aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-2. Thank you. We'll just take a quick 10-minute break. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. I tell you what, we're going to make it 4 minutes. 11:20. Be back.
Vice Mayor. As fast as I can. Yeah, of course,
DER 2025-0008, proposed amendment of the City of Wichita 2035 Urban Growth Areas Map and 2035 Future Growth Concept Map as an element of the Community Investments Plan 2015 to 2035.
Good morning, Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So as you heard, this item is to consider whether to adopt amendments to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan. Here's the recommended action. It would update two different maps that are contained in the plan. One is the Wichita 2035 Urban Growth Areas Map, and the other is the Future Growth Concept Map. The comprehensive plan's title is the Community Investments Plan. It is a guide and contains the two maps that are being considered today. One of the maps is mentioned, the Urban Growth Areas Map. It is advisory only. It shows where cities in Sedgwick County expect to expand and could provide services by the year 2035. The 2035 Future Growth Concept Map is Wichita focused and shows the preferred growth pattern for Wichita. This process was initiated by the City Council in May of this year with a focus on the area near 55th Street South and Ridge Road. The recommended action would remove the following area from the Wichita Urban Growth Areas Map and Future Growth Concept Map. And the boundaries are 47th Street to the north, Hoover to the east, 119th Street to the west, and halfway between 55th Street and 63rd Street south to the 63rd Street to the south. And a note that this is in the unincorporated Sedgwick County as of this time, but has been identified as part of the Wichita Urban Growth Area. So here's another map with the list of the boundaries. Here's a graphic that shows the location shown on the Urban Growth Areas map. So it's outlined in blue with the hatch marks. Here's what the map would look like with that area removed. Here's the location on the Future Growth Concept Map. And likewise, here's a graphic that shows what it would look like with that area removed. As part of the analysis, staff did a review of the area. The future land uses recommended in this location are agricultural or vacant, industrial, and commercial. Staff also looked at the following features. Floodplains. There are some areas located in the 100-year area floodplain. We also looked at the CIP, and the CIP does not program any funding for any of the following in the area: fire stations, police stations, or roadway improvements. The location does have an electrical substation located approximately half a mile to the east. This is one of 3 identified locations in Sedgwick County where solar energy conversion systems can connect to the larger electrical grid. The CIP also does not program any funding for water mains in this area. KDHE records do show the presence of contamination in the area and that the contamination is in the process of being remediated. The KDHE records indicate that it poses no unacceptable risk to human health or the environment based on current conditions. Staff also reviewed the proximity to airports, and the site is approximately 2 miles to the south of Eisenhower Airport. Here is a slide that shows the review and consideration process. This is also described in the staff report. So here's the recommended action, and that is coming to you from the Planning Commission. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Scott from the bench? I see no questions. Open up for public comment. Anyone like to speak on this issue? I see none. Bring it back to the bench. Oh, Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With a motion, I move that the City Council adopt the ordinance approving the proposed amendment of the City of Wichita 2035 Urban Growth Areas Map and 2035 Future Growth Concept Map as an element of the Community Investments Plan 2015 to 2035. Sign the ordinance and authorize the ordinance to be published.
Second. There's been a motion, a second. Open the poll. I don't see it on my screen, but motion carries 6-0. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
DER 2025-0011, College Hill Neighborhood Plan.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and Council. Justin Constantino with the Planning Department, here to talk about the College Hill Neighborhood Plan. Just a quick disclaimer before I get started, the College Hill Neighborhood Plan does not allocate any funding for actions identified or recommended in the plan. The recommended action this morning is to approve an ordinance adopting the College Hill Neighborhood Plan as an element of the comprehensive plan, authorize the necessary signatures, and authorize the ordinance to be published. The boundary of the College Hill neighborhood consists of 1 square mile, Hillside Street to the west, Central Avenue to the north, Oliver Street to the east, and US 54-400 to the south. The neighborhood is bisected by Douglas Avenue. This item has been definitely worked through at the steering committee level. The steering committee was formed back in November of 2023. Since December of 2023 until April of 25, the Public Steering Committee has met 16 times. The role of the steering committee member is to assist in the development of the plan goals, actions, and strategies, and help develop a criteria for setting priorities of the plan, review and provide input on implementation strategies, assist with public events, public open houses, and communicate the status of the planning process to stakeholders. The project kicked off in earnest back in March of 2024 with a public open house held at Grace Presbyterian Church. Every resident in College Hill, every property address in College Hill received a postcard. So over 3,000 postcards were mailed for the event. We had over 150 attendees that were sign-ins. We had, the event was broken up into 2 different sections, a roundtable discussion and board engagement comments. The board engagement comments were kind of come as you go. That was the first hour of the event. The roundtable discussion focused on smaller groups where people were asked specific questions about the neighborhood involving land use and zoning, mobility, housing, pools, recreation, community cohesion, schools, and education. Following the public open house event, we released an online public survey that was released on April 19th. There was a survey and a social pinpoint map. The social pinpoint map was kind of cool because folks taking the survey were able to identify certain areas in the neighborhood that they would like to see improved or things that they liked. A lot of responses on that. 531 total responses were received prior to the survey close date on June 3rd. One question that came out of the survey was regarding the College Hill overlay. We asked if the neighborhood would be in support of a potential overlay down the road, and we received 90% of the neighborhood stated that they would be in support of an overlay. The discussion this morning is specifically focused on the neighborhood plan. The discussion on the overlay would potentially come later. In addition to the public open house and the survey, we did hold community engagement focus groups specifically for local business owners, churches, and nonprofits and schools. We wanted to get as much feedback from those groups as possible because we thought they brought a unique perspective to the neighborhood. That was also held at Grace Presbyterian Church in June of 24. We had a second public open house in the spring of this year on April 15th, again at Grace. Same process, every property owner did receive a postcard about that event. Again, very well attended, over 150 attendees. The intent of the project was to review the draft College Hill neighborhood plan and then provide any input on a potential overlay for the neighborhood at a later date. The online public survey, we released a second online public survey for folks that were unable to attend that public open house. We launched that just a few days after that open house event, and it closed a few weeks later on April 30th. The plan itself, the contents of the plan, it is broken down into 5 chapters with an introduction, a little bit of demographics about the neighborhood, as well as the community engagement process that I just walked through, the plan recommendations, which I will go through in a little bit, as well as what happens if the plan is approved, how do we implement that. The goals, strategies, and actions of the plan are broken down into 6 different categories: housing, mobility, land use, neighborhood character, parks and public space, and community cohesion. This is kind of the layout of what the plan looks like. This is just an example. The image you see on your screen is from the housing section. Basically, each strategy is broken up into an action, followed by a brief description, and then a city department is assigned as a lead with a supporting department. For example, a lead would be either the Public Works Department or the Planning Department, and then support would either come from another department or from the College Hill Neighborhood Association itself. Mobility is another example of one of the sections, one of the strategies that was very important to the neighborhood. What you see on the screen here is the reduction of lanes on Route 10 to Oliver from 4 lanes to 3 lanes with a turning lane in the center and 2 bicycle lanes. This recommendation originally came from the 2011 Douglas Design District Streetscape Plan. So one of the things that came out of the steering committee was that they would like to see this continued and to make Douglas Avenue more pedestrian friendly. Land use design and development. This section provides guidance for staff and the development community as it relates to future zoning cases. The image on the left of the screen is the existing land uses found in the Unified Zoning Code, and the image on the right depicts the desired future land uses identified in the College Hill neighborhood. The future land use map creates new land use categories within the College Hill neighborhood, specifically mixed use office, neighborhood commercial, and mixed use commercial. Again, these land uses on the right are a guide for future development and don't supersede the existing zoning code in the College Hill neighborhood. If the plan is approved, implementation, we will create an annual implementation work plan. We've already started that in the planning department. The work plan will identify the tasks and activities that were identified in the plan, and the organizations, the planning department will work with other city departments to make sure that the strategies and actions identified in the plan are reviewed on an annual basis. That will help ideally implement the plan. This will include specific timelines, resources required, and performance metrics to track our progress on the development of the plan, which is valuable to both the city and the neighborhood, and we will be following up with both the neighborhood association as well as the steering committee on that. This item has been reviewed by the District Advisory Board, the Advanced Plans Committee, MAPC, and here we are today on July 15th for your approval. Again, the recommended action is to approve the College Hill Neighborhood Plan as an element of the comprehensive plan, and I'm available for any questions.
Questions for Councilman Hoheisel?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a question about process. So if there's a property that's currently zoned one way, but then the College Hill plan or any neighborhood plan has it identified as it being inappropriate and wants to zone it something else, how does that process work out? Is it grandfathered in until the property changes, or?
So the future land use recommendations that are in the plan would be used as a reference for staff for their staff report. So if there's an instance where development is about to occur in the College Hill neighborhood, obviously staff would consult the Unified Zoning Code, but they would also consult the future land uses preferences within this plan as well. That information would go into the staff report and be presented to the MAPC.
Okay, so if a business decides to leave, to shutter, okay, let's take like South Broadway, for example.
Sure.
Where they want to eliminate car lots. There's so many car lots along South Broadway. When that property comes up and comes up for sale or any other possibilities like that, does the rezoning automatically kick in, or is that something that would have to go through DAB and council?
If I could, sir, Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So the future land use map is a guide for when zoning cases come forward, and staff can use that as a tool to refer to about whether or not to recommend approval of that zoning case. It's not so much in this case a tool that we anticipate seeing a mass rezoning throughout the neighborhood, but rather something that's just a guide when individual zoning cases come to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so it doesn't automatically kick in. It would still have to go through the process.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Glasscock.
Quick question. To that end, though, because it's a guide and that would influence the recommendation from staff for either approval or denial based on that, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Seeing no one else on the bench, we'll open it up for public comment. Would anyone like to comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the bench. Councilman Glasscock?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I know there will probably be a motion coming. I think there's a lot of great things in this plan. I've read through every page, but there are also some things that I don't agree with that I think are overburdensome on property owners. So I hope a lot of these things can take place, but I don't support all of these. And because that influences staff's recommendation before district advisory boards, before the city council, I will not be supportive of this today.
Councilman Johnson.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Before I make my motion, I just want to say you did a great job, all your work and the team's work. And I was trying to be a quiet watcher in the back and just saw how you worked with this group, and I tuned in from time to time. I'm really happy to see how this came out. To Councilmember Glasscock's point, that was actually a good point or reason that this was formed was council had to continue to make these different decisions based upon what was coming in College Hill and the neighborhood, working with the neighborhood. And it's good to have an idea of what the neighborhood as a whole is looking for, and the engagement, the postcards that went out, the high attendance at all of these. It will help guide future councils and staff on what the neighborhood's actually looking to see happen in College Hill. So again, I'm proud of it. It turned out even better than I thought it would. And again, great job to you, the planning department, and the teams that we worked with. I think this is going to be really good and also provide some guidance and opportunities for other neighborhoods that might be looking to have plans. So you might be busy a lot in the next couple of years. Hopefully so. With that, I am excited about this. I would move that the City Council approve an ordinance adopting the College Hill Neighborhood Plan as an element of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, will you open up the roll, please? Motion carries 5-1. Clerk, will you please call the next item?
HPC 2025-45, nomination for the Crown Uptown Theater to the Wichita Register of Historic Places.
Good morning. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So this item, as you heard, is to consider whether or not to add the Crown Uptown Theater to the Wichita Register of Historic Places. And so just a quick note that this is not a zoning case. The recommended action is for the council to take action as determined necessary. The history of this item goes back to a rezoning application to increase the permitted occupancy, which was denied in February, and a demolition permit that the owner applied for also in February. Currently, there are interim controls that prevent issuing a demolition permit for the site. Those controls are due to expire at the end of August 4th. Here's a diagram with an overview of the nomination and review process, which is described in the staff report. Part of the review process included consideration of the historic qualifications of the site. The Wichita Historic Preservation Board found that it meets the criteria to be listed on the Wichita Register, and the vote at their meeting for this was 5-0. A report about the theater, its history, and qualifications is attached to the staff report. The Crown Uptown Theater at 3207 East Douglas was constructed in 1928. It is not listed on the National, State, or Wichita Registers of Historic Places. It is identified as an undesignated historic resource by the city of Wichita. Here's an image of a newspaper page from when it opened and some images of the theater. The analysis for this also included a review of plans and policies. The Planning Commission determined that the listing is consistent with adopted plans. The vote at their meeting was 8-2. A question has come up during this process about whether a structure on the Wichita Register of Historic Places can be demolished. The answer is yes, but it requires additional review. That review process requires consideration by the Wichita Historic Preservation Board. The board's decision can be appealed to the City Council. Two recent examples of similar processes where this occurred included the warehouses in Old Town that were demolished or are planned to be demolished, and apartments north of downtown that were also requesting permission for a demolition permit. So in terms of considerations, any vote to list the property on the Wichita Register of Historic Places will require 5 out of 7 votes. On Friday, July 11th, the owner filed an objection to the listing in writing with the city clerk, which per the municipal code requires a 2/3 majority vote for approval of including it on the register. So again, the recommended action is take action as determined necessary by the council. This is a public hearing for this item, and I would also point out that Robin Gibson with Falk Architects is here today and available for any questions. Robin conducted the research, compiled the photos, and prepared the report about the history and qualifications of the theater. And so with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions from the bench? Seeing none, we will open it up for public comment. Would anyone like to comment on this?
Good morning. Is it still morning? It is.
Barely.
My name is Ann Garvey, and I'm a community, I think I'm considered an arts activist, referred to as a passionate preservationist in a recent article, and I am. And before I begin my remarks, I wanted to express my gratitude, my deep appreciation for the words that Mr. Brandon Johnson spoke this morning, who has the courage of his conviction to express so eloquently his objection to our compliance with the new federal demands coming essentially from the executive order. But thank you for that, and thank you for that too, Maggie. My own convictions have brought me here this morning. It's my conviction that we must not see the destruction of one more extremely valuable building, the Crown Uptown Theater. I'm here today, as I said, not as a passionate preservationist. Yes, it can be designated historic. That will not keep it from being demolished. I have seen triply designated historic buildings torn down and replaced with hideous structures here. Now, what I'm arguing is the bigger picture, the long-term picture, how significant this place has been for nearly 100 years until the last 2 years. I've tried to estimate how many events and experiences I've had at the Crown since moving to Wichita. And here are some of the things I've been to there. The Tallgrass Film Festival, dozens of theatrical performances, plays, concerts, dance recitals, your children's dance recitals, book readings, business Christmas parties, political rallies, a funeral, a wedding, a class reunion. I've seen jazz, R&B, classic music concerts there. There have been art exhibits, anniversaries, and celebratory galas there. In other words, the Crown is an extraordinarily valuable and extremely rare venue. We do not have many stages in Wichita, and this serves a perfect medium model for it. It's a third the size of the Century 2 Concert Hall, half the size of the Orpheum, larger than Mary Jane Teal. There just aren't very many performing places for our enormous arts community. It's been a great use to Wichita until the current owner closed its doors pretty much to the Wichita community. Now, for those of you who believe that a privately owned property must not be tampered or interfered with by others, let me ask you this. If you knew of a child who was being neglected, abused, or threatened, would you not feel compelled to act on that child's behalf? This is how I feel about this building. I feel morally obligated to stand here in front of you and beg that it not be demolished. It will never be returned. It can never be replicated. We cannot do this again. We will lose a very valuable place. I know it's been gone for 2 years. We haven't had it for 2 years. But look at the long-term plan. If you had something of value, you must not see it go away forever in perpetuity. Never have the opportunity to see and experience beautiful events there, happy experiences. You know, art changes people's lives, and it saved my nephew, when he restored it, claims that art saved his life. And he dedicated himself and spent a lot of money doing a lot of work within that building. Now, do you all get the Shout, which is our art newsletter? It's free to you. If you look at that, you can see how gigantic our art community is, and thereby how enormous our art community and audience is. Now, I'm just imploring you to don't take this away forever. If you know, it's a stopgap to put it on the historic register, but we must think in long terms of how valuable this place is. And I ask that you stop this continual demolition of beautiful buildings, important places. We need this. College Hill needs it. The whole city of Wichita needs it. Thank you so much for your attention this morning.
Thank you, Ann. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. Ms. Garvey, I would like to say that you are not an arts advocate or an activist. You are the arts activist. So thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your comments. It did spark a question for Scott. So Scott, if you could possibly join us again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And I appreciate you meeting with me last week. I think it was last week, right? This is a really hard one for me. So I want to ask some clarifying questions based on comments from the speaker. And I know we had an opportunity for questions before, but this just came up. So I think it's timely, and I hope my colleagues will be okay. So today the vote is whether or not this building goes on the historic list, correct?
That is correct.
Voting for it to go on the historic preservation doesn't mean that it can't be torn down.
That is correct.
We are not voting on whether or not the building can be torn down or not.
That is correct in nature. I will explain, though, that there is a pending demolition permit that is currently being pursued that has a stay of 180 days, which will expire at the end of August 4th. If this property is not placed on the historic register, then my understanding is that there's no reason to deny granting that demolition permit. And so the property owner will have the authority to demolish the site. It does not mean that it will be demolished, but it simply means that that permit will be issued.
Thank you.
Councilmember Glasscock.
Thank you. Also, question for Scott. Even in this period where there's been a hold on the demolition permit, if the applicant, let's say, demolished the building yesterday, they would have only faced a $150 citation by the city, correct?
I'm not sure that I can confirm or deny that one. So there would be penalties, but I'm not sure to what degree.
Vice Mayor, council members, Chris Labrum, MABCD, good morning and thanks. Appreciate the chance to clarify that. As that came up last time, we didn't get very deeply into that. So to ensure we cover all of that, we would go out, if we noticed that the building was under demolition, we would go out and stop that action. So if a contractor was to undertake that, the potential of their licensing, except insurance, some of those things may be in jeopardy. So that would be that would really be kind of the enforcement arm. But as you pointed out in the last discussion, sir, our code is not oriented to stop someone from this action with their own building. So the penalty, for lack of a better term for that, would be an increased fee. Our normal fee for a demolition permit is $50. That fee would increase to $150 once they had proper permissions in place to proceed with the demolition.
So that was the only penalty the property owner faced up until August 4th?
Correct.
Okay. Second question, I don't know if this would be for you or Scott, probably Scott. What additional prohibitions would be placed on the building if this was placed on the registry?
Sure. So Just one moment. I want to make sure I get to the right code here. There would have to, so what would happen is that work that would modify the exterior or damage or destroy the building would be required to, and that is work that would require a permit or some action on the part of the city, would require a certificate of appropriateness first. And that, depending on the scope of the work, either can be approved administratively if it's something minor. We just saw some examples of those at the Wichita Historic Preservation Board yesterday, where they were doing some AC work or something like that, or something major where, say, they intend to replace windows or change the facade in some way. The minor ones can be approved administratively. The major ones require review by the Historic Preservation Board. The board then has the authority to deny a permit for one of those activities. And if the property owner disputes that or wants to continue or pursuing that, they can always appeal that then to the city council. So you've seen that in terms of demolition permits, but it would also apply to possibly, permits that would somehow affect the exterior.
So there would be additional prohibitions placed on it that were not in place when the property owner purchased the property.
In a manner of speaking, yes, and processes that go with those. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Scott, real quick, if something was also listed on the Historic Register of or Wichita Register of Historic Places, does that offer up them the ability to get any additional incentives to maybe get some dollars to help out with investment in the property?
Not so much on the Wichita Register. However, if it can get listed on the national and the state registers, then there are tax incentives that come with those. So federal and then state taxes. Likewise, it would make the property eligible potentially for perhaps grants or something like that. However, I do want to indicate that I've not seen one of those come through for in some time. So I don't want to get anyone's hopes up on those, but the tax incentives are certainly available.
Okay. Well, it's always better to be eligible than not.
Okay, I don't see anyone else wanting to speak. Or do? Okay.
Good afternoon yet? Not yet. Good morning, guys. Mike Brown with the Crown. I think we all know why we're here. We bought this property and found out things that were not there, even though it has been said publicly by folks on your council that we knew what we were buying. The piece of code that you guys are using here with this list that was created in 1991 is 42 pages long. It has over 700 properties on it. I wonder how many people in Wichita that own those 700 properties know that their property's on this list, and what the possibility of control is that the council can put on them to do with their private property. I don't know how many of you have read the Constitution, but in the Fifth Amendment, it talks about regulatory takings. It talks about eminent domain, where someone takes private property for public use and that owner is compensated. In my opinion, and I think that the Supreme Court has looked at it in some levels, that this is a regulatory taking effort by the city council. You're putting restrictions on a private property that were not there at the time it was purchased. They do not show up in title work. They were not present at all. I've been, in the middle of litigation with a neighbor over use of our building, and that's here nor there, but I've had communication from them in an email that the only reason that this was brought to light was because I underestimated them and they made you guys aware of it. Now, whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. The problem is that you've got private property being controlled, or an effort to be controlled, with no compensation to me. Now, there was someone that spoke up here earlier that the venue's been closed for 2 years. That's clearly not true. We've had Clint Black, Terry Clark, Pauly Shore, multiple artists through that deal. We hosted the Pando Awards, where we gifted back $1,200 of their fee for a scholarship in perpetuity that we'll do as long as we're around. So for you guys to come in and restrict the use of this building, for it's been owned by multiple people that have lost $250,000 a year, and great that they had all of these things that people enjoy going to. But this is a business. This isn't a museum. It's not a publicly owned building. It's not subsidized by the city. You guys just admitted that by placing this on your registry, there's no financial incentive for me to agree to this. Look, can we go back and look at the photos that you guys showed of the building that were from the history? Is that an option? Can we see that? Who's in control of that? Can we do that?
Mr. Clerk, you can put those up.
I mean, and the reason we're here is because of a capacity issue, right? So the Planning Commission has approved it twice. For political reasons, I believe that it has been denied. There's not any, can we go to the interior photo from 1928? Keep going. Thank you for this. There we go. So that's what that building looked like in 1928. There are 1,500 people in seats there with no voice-actuated fire alarms, no strobe lights. The building is built out of non-combustible material. Now, I don't see why, other than just a few people that are complaining about us moving this property forward with the capacity we need. You guys have the ability to save this building. It's not economically feasible to operate it at the capacity that it's at. We've hired engineers, architects that have expressed that the code says that it'll support what we've asked. We've had drones in the air that have reflected what the parking was like when we had 860 people in there. You could still park on Douglas at 8:30. We have a property owner across the street that controls 160 parking spaces, private property. They can do with it what they want. But after 6 o'clock, no one's allowed to park there. None of their tenants are open after 6. Again, private property, their rights. Just like my rights with our property, we should be allowed to do with it what we see fit as an investment, not what a group of people that don't own it want to tell us what to do. There's no public use involved here. There's no public compensation. If the city would like to do something with it, buy it. That's all I have to say. I think it's a taking. I think it's a forceful control of real estate. It impacts our ability to develop it. I've had multiple people that have looked at it to buy it. However, with a historic designation and restriction on that in that market, it's not viable. So I ask you to do what's right and follow the Constitution and do what you're elected to do and support the people of Wichita and property owners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
You asked for a permit to allow 2,000 people,
Correct.
and you said there was 1,500 at that time.
At that time.
Would you be open to negotiations, a number less than 2,000, closer to 1,500?
So is that something that you guys can make that decision today? Can you enter into a motion?
No.
Well,
It'd be something between you and basically the neighborhood.
the neighborhood doesn't vote on this. And I've expressed, there's 8-10 people that have been out actively trying to unhook our parking agreements from property owners. So I've met with enough property folks in that area. I've made every effort. We've presented every piece of evidence to support what we want to do, and it's just not economically viable. And from everyone we've talked to, there's no real parking issue. So I'm willing to listen, but so far nobody's come to the table other than to try to tell us what to do.
Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Regardless if this passes or fails today, what could be the next steps for the property owner to either bring another application before this body? I know that we can't vote on an application today. What would be the next steps? What's the timeline, regardless of whether it's a yes or no vote?
Yes, sir. This property is a little bit unique in that the zoning, the custom zoning that was created for this property is what restricts the occupancy as well as fire codes and building codes, but it's unique that the zoning code has it for this. Because the application was considered and failed to increase it, they have a 12-month basically cooling off period before they can submit another application. If it is substantially different, then they can submit it in 6 months. Ultimately, if there's any questions about whether or not it's a substantial difference, it will be referred to the Planning Commission for them to determine whether or not it meets that criteria.
How close are we to 6 months or 12 months?
believe my notes indicated it was February of this year when that was decided, so they would have 12 months from that date.
So August.
Or actually, I beg to differ, it may be from the council date or it may be from the MAPC date. Okay, one of those two. So it would be within a range of a couple months of that.
So you're looking, the applicant could come back around August or September if it's a substantially different application.
If found to be substantially different. Yes, sir, in that 6-month period of
And
time.
if it's not substantially different, they would have to wait till February, March.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to publicly comment on this?
I have a question for Scott. Is that an option?
No.
No. Okay.
Thank you, though.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Staley. I've been a educator in Kansas for close to 30 years. Recently moved to the Wichita area out by Garden Plain, and I've brought so many students, administration, parents to the Crown Center from rural areas to where those students didn't get that chance in those areas. And I would hate for anything to happen to the Crown. I've never done this before, so I don't know if you have
Doing great.
questions.
Any questions for Connie? No? Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this?
Arthur Allen, concerned citizen and neighbor. I've spoken with all of you before. One thing I would ask is the vice mayor would allow the presentation that was prepared by the architecture firm that I witnessed at the Historical Preservation Board meeting, as well as the MAPC, which no one else spoke of, and the owner and none of his representatives respected either of those bodies enough to be present. So I would like it, you all, because I don't know whether you actually looked at those slides and that presentation that we as taxpayers and you asked to have put together. She's here, you have the information, but it's really important that we look at beyond the property rights situation and the greater whole. I'm sorry, Mike. Sorry, I didn't laugh at you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. They would have the same 5-minute opportunity that anyone else would have. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the bench. Scott?
Sir, if I may, there were questions about the scope of what level of review is required afterwards. I was able to find the citation in the code, and I just want to make sure that you understand that a certificate of appropriateness is required, as I described, but that a certificate of appropriateness does extend to projects that do not require a permit, which propose to alter features which have been defined in a district's preservation guidelines as requiring protection. And so I just want you to understand that not only is it things that the city does issue a permit for, which I'm very familiar with, but it would also extend to the features that do not require a permit, but do make this a distinct and historic structure. So I just want to make sure that I convey to you the full breadth and scope of that requirement.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Councilmember Tuttle.
Scott, don't go too far. Thank you. I'm sorry, I know I'm working you today. I just want to make sure that I completely understand, everybody completely understands. This is the first time I've been through this process in my time on council. So for this to pass today would mean, if it passed, it would go on the Wichita Register of Historic Places.
Correct. Yes.
And that would require 5 of 6 votes because there's only 6 of us here today.
Correct. It requires 5 votes. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So if it went on the Wichita Register of Historic Places, the owner could still demolish the building if his permit were approved.
That is correct. Yes.
I just want to go on record. This is a very hard vote for me. As someone who is incredibly supportive of the arts, culture of our community, historic, I see that, but then I see the other side too. I also would like to just state for the record that I know many of my colleagues were able to go and meet with Mr. Brown and take a tour. I have had no ex parte communication with the owner applicant at this point. So thank you for answering all my questions.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the bench? Seeing none, I do have one. Ted Morris owned that building for a long time. I went to a lot of plays. I like to go to plays. Went to a lot of plays. Had Christmas parties from the clothing store there. It's a great building, but there is the issue of property rights. I do value that. It would be my hope that Mr. Brown would engage in another process of bringing it back to the bench, to MAPC, and to the bench to preserve that building and use it for betterment. So, Councilman Glasscock.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Mr. Brown, I've said this multiple times from this bench. I hope that we save this building. I hope that we choose to be good neighbors in this community. This building means a lot to people in this room. It means a lot to me. I have a lot of memories there as well. I think value can be subjective, but property rights are not. And I hope that somebody from this bench would stand up for my property rights if someone was trying to exert influence over my property without my consent as well. So that's why I will not be supportive of adding this to the registry. I hope that as a community, we can find a solution to save this building, because I do believe it has significance to our community. And that is why I will not be adding it to the registry.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Today's action is about the Register of Historic Places. I won't relitigate the original application, but I will highlight, just for this body and others, that the concerns were not necessarily just parking. There was a huge public safety concern. And if you go back to the MAPC meeting and look at some of the questions and conversation, capacity also had to do with building code and fire code. And so some of the numbers being requested weren't realistic anyway. But those concerns of safety were a big part of the earlier piece. Aside from that, I am supportive of this, so I would move that the City Council enact by ordinance putting the property on the Wichita Register of Historic Places, sign the ordinance, and authorize the ordinance to be published.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Motion is defeated, 3-3. Mr. Clerk, I'd like to take a poll from the bench. Would you like to stop for lunch or just keep going? Councilmember Johnson?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. With that motion failing, I would move to defer this item to the the August 5th evening meeting.
The item we just voted on?
Yes, it failed. It did not pass. It did not fail. So I would like to move it there where we will have a full body.
I would ask legal.
I think it failed.
Legal, what's the?
Took 5 votes.
It would take the prevailing party to be able to revisit it, and there's no prevailing party.
That's correct, Mayor, Vice Mayor. That's correct, Councilmember Tuttle. The motion's failed. I don't believe the action can be deferred at this time.
So previously, when that had happened, if there was a substantially different motion, it was allowed. So is that not the case? And that is substantially different because it would just
It
hear
would have
this
to be
item.
within this meeting.
Okay. I wish we had another member on the phone.
With that said, lunch. Keep going. Like a couple more. Keep going. Okay, Mr. Clerk, please follow the next item.
Approval of insurance brokerage service contract.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm Heather St. Pierre with the Finance Department Risk Management Division. The item before you is the approval of our insurance brokerage services contract. Let me see if I can get this to move. The risk management division in the finance department is responsible for protecting city assets. Often this involves seeking insurance coverage, and the city's needs for placement are varied and complex. To assist staff, the city uses an insurance broker to facilitate market access, manage any claims processes, and to mitigate risks. The city insures over $1 billion in property assets every year. Excess coverages for general liability and workers' compensation are also placed annually. Specialized insurance lines include cyber, art, and coverages for the airport, which are also placed each year. On February 8th, 2025, the city issued a request for proposals for insurance brokerage services. 5 responses were received. A staff screening and selection committee with members from finance, law, the city manager's office, and airport reviewed the proposals and conducted interviews. The staff screening and selection committee recommended IMA due to their experienced professionals with market access and specific knowledge in specialized fields, emphasis on risk mitigation, particularly through contract review, and a local presence with a highly accessible local approach, including investing 2 times the industry average in value-added client services. The proposed contract is for 1 year, with 4 additional 1-year renewal periods. The law department has approved the contract as to form, and it is recommended that the City Council approve the selection of and contract with IMA Financial Group. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the bench? Seeing none, I'll open it up for public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the bench. With that, I'd like to make the motion to approve the selection of the contract with IMA Financial Group and adopt the amending resolution and adopt the necessary signatures.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please pull up the roll. Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Design concept supplemental agreement number 4 and funding for 29th Street North and Broadway intersection.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and Council. Steve Degenhart with Public Works and Utilities. The item before you seeks approval for design concept, supplemental design agreement, and funding for the 29th Street and Broadway intersection. A little history. Back in July 2021, the council approved an agreement with Garver to evaluate the existing traffic conditions in an area bound by Broadway on the west, Hydraulic on the east, and 25th and 37th Streets on the north and south. The evaluation considered multiple items, including existing and future traffic counts, crash history, and existing lane configurations at the intersections along those corridors. That study of that information spanned a 10-year period and evaluated, again, traffic accidents for those corridors. And from that, this heat map was generated. So to kind of orient the map here, Broadway north is to the top, and Broadway being on the left, and 29th being on the bottom there. So I want to draw your attention to the lower left-hand corner. That's the 29th Street and Broadway intersection. And you can tell by the heat map there were a significant number of crashes at that location compared to all the other intersections that were evaluated. Went into a little bit deeper evaluation of those crashes to figure out, what was going on at that intersection, and identified primarily there that, over a third of the crashes were related to northbound and southbound left turn crashes. So from that, then we viewed that this intersection would be a good candidate for the KDOT's Highway Safety and Improvement Program funding, and as a result, applied for that funding, and the project was then created as a separate project, standalone from the other 29th Street improvements that you've previously taken action on between Broadway and Hydraulic. The project, again, we submitted it earlier this year on the HSIP funding and hope to hear within a month here on KDOT's official word on that application. But we feel we're in a pretty good spot with that application. Traffic counts at that intersection, just under 15,000 total currently, and the split between both Broadway and 29th, it's about 55-45 in favor of Broadway. And so future traffic counts being just under 19,000 vehicles per day for the future. And I might also add too that not only did we apply for the HSIP funding, but earlier, in fact, just last month, the whole Broadway corridor from Pawnee to the south and I-235 to the north, which is just north of 37th Street here, was applied for the Safe Streets for All grant. Just to look at some of the existing conditions out there, each leg of the intersection is 4 lanes, no left turn lanes at all in either direction. And I think this picture here, this is north of the intersection looking back south. I think this picture really illustrates why we really push for that center left turn lane, as if you take the white vehicle there looking the same direction as the camera, assuming they were making a left-hand turn there, and while the dark car looking back towards the camera while also trying to make that left-hand turn, this white vehicle cannot see the oncoming traffic in the other lane, and that's one of the big factors that contributes to such a high number of left turn related crashes. So the proposed concept will reconstruct the intersection, modify the lane configuration, including left turn lanes on all 4 directions. And that does include the east leg of the intersection there where the railroad tracks are. Just the white arrow doesn't show up very well on this, but or at least my screen. But the new intersection, left turn lanes, which will be opposite each other, which create a better line of sight to see oncoming traffic, as well as it will replace the existing traffic signals, and those traffic signals will include the accessible pedestrian signals. On June 29th, 2025, District 6 Advisory Board approved the design concept, and supplemental design agreement number 4 has been prepared for final design. So with that, the design fee to date, which includes the original design study, original study and design of the 29th Street Broadway to hydraulic corridor improvements, is just over $822,000. This supplemental agreement number 4 is $504,530. 57 of that is for waterline design along that 29th Street corridor and is funded through the arterial mains budget. The other $447,000 is for the design of the 29th and Broadway intersection, which brings the total design fee to date to $1,327,043. So the existing project budget for 29th and Broadway is $500,000, was approved earlier this year and is funded by local sales tax. The adopted 2025-2034 CIP includes $1 million in 2025, and staff recommends initiating the full amount for a revised budget of $1.5 million. The adopted CIP also includes $1.5 million in 2027 for a total program budget of $3 million. And again, pending the outcome of our HSIP funding application, this amount would be split between KDOT and City of Wichita. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council approve the design concept, revised budget, and supplemental design agreement number 4, adopt the amending resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are any questions from the bench? I see none. We'll open it up to the public to speak on this if they'd like to. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the bench. This resides in Councilmember Ballard's district.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to take the recommended action, approve the design concept revised budget supplemental design agreement number 4, adopt the amending resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second. There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please open up the roll. Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Clerk, please call the next item.
Public Housing Recovery Agreement Status Report.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of council. Sally Stang with the Housing and Community Services Department. For the record, the item that I have for you today is just an update, a monthly update required by HUD on our recovery agreement. Little history. On January 7th, 2025, the Housing Authority Board entered into a recovery agreement with the Department of Housing and Urban Development due to the low public housing assessment score. And HUD is requiring a status update report be presented to the Wichita Housing Authority Board monthly. The recovery agreement includes actions related to improving the physical condition of occupied dwelling units, repositioning the remaining public housing properties, and providing an update on the capital fund projects. So under improving the physical condition, all required maintenance plans, inspections, and work order monitoring reports have been and continue to be submitted to HUD as required. And the HUD Real Estate Assessment Center inspections were completed May 19th through May 23rd, 2025. And the preliminary scores from those inspections are 100% and 93% respectively. Repositioning public housing. We currently have a 21.5% occupancy rate. We stopped leasing units as they vacated, and this occupancy rate has driven much of the low score for FOS because 3 of the 4 scoring areas are driven by occupancy numbers. Approval of that final disposition application was received on June 20th. To date, 177 properties have sold, 24 are pending sale. And we provide a detailed disposition report, which is attached to the agenda report. We provide that to you. We also provide it to HUD live in a shared repository. Closings have slowed down because HUD's taking much longer than usual to release the declarations of trust. My discussion with them on the phone yesterday is they are hoping to get us the declarations of trust releases we submitted at the beginning of May by the beginning of August. It is a challenge because we can't move forward until those are received with those closings. Strategies for the remaining units are to update the Affordable Housing Fund plan to provide subsidy for the South City units that are to be sold as affordable rentals currently occupied by some of our largest families in our community, and units within the floodplain, as those are going to be challenging to reposition. Requests for proposals will be issued without subsidy for the Arnold and Country Acres clusters. There is tremendous interest in both of those clusters, with all remaining units to be sold on the open market, staggered not to flood the market, and after the occupants relocate. We had our first 12 units from this last group hit the market Friday, late afternoon, and by late morning, and by mid-afternoon, we had already received an offer to purchase all 12. So they are definitely moving fast. Capital fund projects, the roof replacement project on 10 units is complete. The renovation of 7 of those units down in South City is 95% complete. We've got renovations underway on 7 units in the Country Acres cluster, and that's about 10% complete at this moment. And we received another allocation of capital funds for 2025. So we're working through planning for additional roof replacements and targeted investments in those units that are going to be most challenging to reposition. There is no impact to the general fund. The monthly update is to the Wichita Housing Authority Board is required by the recovery plan, and it is recommended that the Wichita Housing Authority Board receive and file the recovery plan status update report for July 2025, and I stand for any questions.
Any questions from the bench for Sally? Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Glad to know your button still works.
Yeah. I think I'm at a minimum for speaking so far today. Could you briefly touch on some of the updates to reflect the Inspire language?
So HUD has changed from housing quality standards or the real estate assessment system standards, 2 different standards they had, to the national standard for the physical and inspection of real estate. It is a new criteria. It covers very similar to the other standards, but they're trying to devise more consistency across programs. So the Inspire voucher standard comes into play on October 1st of this year, and the Inspire standard for public housing came into play 2 years ago. So they're moving forward with that.
Okay, is this just something strictly related to Section 8 and the HUD homes?
It is strictly related to units that are subsidized by HUD.
Okay, I did sit in on a presentation a couple of months ago, I believe, at the housing conference, and it's pretty interesting how it works out. And it's something maybe we should take a look at as far as adopting even in our own codes, because it does give a little flexibility. It tries to standardize it across the board, so that way something looks one way to one inspector and it looks a different way to another inspector. So it's really interesting how they've pivoted to this. So yeah, I was just curious about that, and maybe do we have a presentation on it we can send to the other council members as well?
Sure, I can definitely forward information that shows what those criteria are when we're inspecting a residential housing unit.
Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Not seeing any more council members on the board. I'll open up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on this. Seeing none, I'll move it back to the bench. This is very important to me, and I so much appreciate Sally and her team's efforts on this, because affordable housing is so important, especially to solving the homeless situation. So thank you, Sally. With that, I move to receive and file the HUD Recovery Agreement Status Update and the Public Housing Disposition Update Report for July 2025.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Motion carries 6-0. With that, we will move to council member appointments. Does anyone have any appointments? Seeing none, we'll move to council member comments. Council member Tuttle.
Thank you. I know that we're at the end of a long meeting, even though it isn't as long as I thought it was going to go today. But I just wanted to highlight an event that's happening on Saturday that I'm quite proud of. Our child care licensing team, along with Child Start and McConnell Air Force Base, are offering a free CEU event for child care providers who participate from 9 to noon on Saturday at Child Start can get up to 3 free KDHE CEUs in childcare. And that's wonderful. But the true purpose of this event is there's a need that most people aren't aware of. Our servicemen and women across the nation, or our region, when they come to McConnell for their trainings for the weekend, oftentimes they have to bring their kiddos and they don't have access to childcare during the weekend hours. And so it takes a special training, it takes special certification. It's quite a complicated process because you're working with the U.S. military. Our child care licensing team, along with Child Start, can provide the content expertise to help child care providers who want to do this navigate through the process. So it's really asking our child care providers in the community to step up to help our United States military so they can be trained. So this is something that's very unique. Other military bases across the nation are already asking questions about it. We have 27 child care providers who are registered for Saturday to be able to learn more about this unique opportunity. So just a big thanks to Child Start, to, again, the City of Wichita Child Care Licensing Team, McConnell Air Force Base, and then also our communications team. Tomorrow at 10:30, we will have a media briefing just to let the community know about this event. So thanks to all and wish us luck.
Councilmember Tuttle, and thank you for the work on childcare. We appreciate that. I would also like to thank Councilmember Johnson and Tuttle for helping me get through this meeting again. And Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to let Bob know that I let you off easy today because you said this was your 41st budget. And I was going to joke about having probably 41,000 pie charts. And I was going to have 41 questions for you, but I let you off easy today.
I'm going to thank you for that too. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn I will make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Please open the roll. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.